It's loud.
Yeah, now pause it.
All right, I'm going to call the Holiday Island City Planning Commission meeting to order. This is the special meeting of 11/30/2021. It's 9 a.m. Let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Lynn, you want to call the roll?
Commissioner Keys.
Here.
Commissioner Elwood.
Here.
Commissioner Pittman.
Here.
Commissioner Graves.
Here.
Commissioner Dumas here. And I'll record that Mr. Mills is absent.
All right. That's still a quorum, so I'll declare a quorum.
That's for you.
That's for you. That's
just following along.
Oh, okay. All right, we have an agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Agenda is approved. We have minutes from the November 23rd meeting, which will be important for us to follow as part of the follow-up to do things. Any questions on the minutes? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll approve the minutes for November 17th.
All right, you want a second? Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes are approved. No standing committee reports, no special committee reports. Old business action items from November 17th discussion.
So following that list, we have to do in 14044.
Let me correct something for the record.
Okay.
I said we were approving the minutes from the November 23rd meeting. It was the November 17th meeting.
Yes.
All right.
So the first to do is listed in 14044, and it was for me to look at what regulations that we might find in other cities to determine how we might measure or define repair and reconstruction. The first citing I found was from Commonwealth Village, and they have language that says any non-conforming building or structure damaged beyond 60% of its then replacement or market value, exclusive of foundations. The next citing I had was from Cabot, and they said, should a structure be destroyed by any means to an extent of more than 50% of its replacement cost at time of destruction, it shall be reconstructed except in conformity. It also said that should a structure containing a non-conforming use be destroyed by any means to an extent of more than 50% of the replacement time at the cost of destruction. That's apparently language that's very similar to what Comic Village uses. When I looked at Green Forest, I found text that said, should structure be destroyed by any means to an extent of more than 50% of its replacement cost at time of destruction, it shall not be reconstructed. Same language that they borrowed. And Hot Springs said, a structure shall be considered destroyed if the cost of destruction of the damage to the structure exceeds more than 60% of its replacement cost at time of destruction. And that's all I found in the group of ordinances and regulations from other cities. So 3 were 50% and 1 was 60% of its replacement cost at time of destruction, to put a value on whether it can be repaired or not and be still non-conforming.
Mm-hmm.
Are we talking about non-conformance of the structure itself adhering to certain structural issues?
No, we're talking about non-conforming use.
Non-conforming use, which would be how they're using the property.
Yeah, like they might have a corner drugstore in a residential area.
So you're going to put them out of business?
if they have destruction more than whatever percentage, then they can't repair it and continue the non-conformance.
But they could seek a variance.
Yeah.
I guess they could seek it again, in other
Well,
Seek a
words.
variance if we,
The problem with asking for a variance, the statutes are clear that we can't do it. We can't grant a variance if we have an ordinance that says they can't. I mean, if it's clear. You know, if it clearly says you can't do this in a certain area, I'm sure it's done a lot, but
I'm just trying to figure out how that would seem to be a fairly rare event where you've got something that's actually like light commercial and something zone residential, especially here.
well, what if it were,
You could rezone.
what if it were B&B business?
Yeah, really.
We haven't even gotten there yet, but we will be.
Like where people live there and actually serve breakfast.
Mhm.
But there,
Well, that's a bad example, because B&Bs are allowed by state statute, so that's not a good example.
yeah, there are other possible circumstances, like what if somebody has a huge shed in their backyard and it burns 60%. It burns or it's damaged beyond the 60% threshold. And the zoning ordinance for that area doesn't allow large sheds in your backyard, then, they wouldn't be allowed to rebuild it.
It seems like I was reading, and maybe we haven't got to it in the stuff yet, but where, and I'm not sure if it was a conforming or non-conforming, but let's say that you put a small little 500 square foot apartment in the back of your house, and it was for your mother-in-law. And it was in the back of the house, at the back of the lot, on a large lot or whatever. But it's a non-conforming use. That burns down, but you still need to take care of your mother-in-law. Would you let him rebuild it or not?
Detached.
Yeah, little detached apartment.
There are, it's further on in our consideration, but there's a section here for emergency accommodations.
I think that's where I was reading.
And it's for that purpose, it's intended for a short period of time that it's permitted in this regulation. Whether we adapt it or not, I don't know.
Yeah, I know.
I'm not so sure that 50%, 60%, whatever percentage is not still a little fuzzy, because I know from talking to a couple, I didn't handle property, but I know a couple of property adjusters, and I know how they do it in Oklahoma, strictly residents. It doesn't matter how much smoke damage or water damage or sheetrock damage or paint damage, that can add up to a lot of money. When you're talking an older building that may have an ACV of $100,000, you'd have $60,000 worth of smoke damage to it. They can rebuild it as long as it doesn't affect any system that itself has to be brought up to code. Like it doesn't affect the electrical system, it doesn't affect the plumbing system, and you can have a lot of sheetrock damage, which is never covered by code, except in Florida. Monetarily, but the basic structure is still the same, and you don't have to, you don't have to rewire it, or the minute you get into something that's covered by another code, like an electric code, that's a whole different story. I don't know, maybe that's the only way we can go, but I don't know how to measure the 60%.
I would say that you go get estimates for repair or rebuild and compare it to the value of the home.
Well, like I said, you got a 30-year-old home.
Right.
The ACV may be this. You're talking about repairing it this, and then you could have $60,000 worth of repairs on a $100,000 home that's 30 years old and hardly tell as far as the structure itself. And those are.
And again, we're talking about non-conforming uses that one day we want to be conforming. That's the reason it's there.
Uses is different than, I'm thinking, I guess, maybe more in terms of you got a 1,200 square foot house and we have code that says it has to be 1,600. That's a little different situation.
Yeah, that's not a non-conforming use.
That's not a non-conforming. Yeah, we may not have another way to do it. I just don't know.
There was, and I don't know why I didn't highlight it, but I did find one that they took the repair cost compared to the county's assessed value. So it wasn't arbitrary that, oh, my house is worth 300,000. No, it's only worth 60. You don't have that conversation because you go to what the county says it's worth. So that was the way they put a measurement on it.
That may actually
That's
be
an
better,
interesting,
because
that's a good approach.
I mean, that's how they establish the value,
Yeah,
that you
something a
compare
little
the
more
cost.
tangible
Mhm.
without the, you know.
It takes the arbitrary out of it.
It
That's
does.
the thing I'm worried about is the arbitrary ones,
Mhm.
you know.
Because they could go get 3 estimates and it's still, if they pick the right people,
Right.
Yeah,
And-
make it whatever they wanted.
And in
the
that,
repairs may exceed the estimate.
and that particular one, they use a 50% value because typically the county has a lower value on than what your
Yeah.
market value might be.
Yeah.
So it brought the threshold down a little bit.
I don't know, yeah, I think that, I still like that approach, it just, anything that takes a little bit of ambiguity out of it seems
Did,
better way to go.
did you find, zoning, regulations, did you find examples of cities that didn't even deal with that? Just,
No, I think every one that I have has a section on non-conforming. That's a
Destruction
good
of
question, though.
non-conforming.
Yeah, the damage destruction. I can answer that.
okay,
Because I opened up documents, did the search for keywords. I think I found them in every one that I opened, as I recall.
'cause I'm sitting here kind of struggling to come up with a real world example on Holiday Island of where this would come into play.
We could have a weather event that a tornado takes out the corner or something that's
Yeah, well, what's the-
non-conforming.
What examples come to mind right now of a
Of
non-conforming use?
non-conforming.
If we have unit 2 and they have a trailer on it that we can't replace, or unit 1. And it's mobile home versus manufactured home. I ran into that in a couple of statutes that you can't
Like a
replace.
Grandfathered right now,
Right,
grandfathered.
they're starting out as non-conforming.
Yeah.
Can't replace a mobile home with a mobile home, but you can replace a mobile home with a manufactured home. A manufactured home has a raked roof with shingles and that kind of thing.
That's a good example, so now I agree we need the clause in there.
Okay.
So,
I'm glad you brought that up, because I'm sitting here,
I was
I couldn't come
struggling
up with an
too.
example either for Holiday Island.
since 50% seems to be the most common percentage, I'd go with 50%.
And then add it compared to the county's assessed value?
Yeah.
The only flaw I find in that is if you're talking about a shed, a non-conforming shed burning down, that shed is factored into the overall estimate of the house and the shed.
But would it not be itemized on the assessors?
I don't think so.
Yeah, they do. They put utility buildings, sidewalks,
They
porches.
have square feet, they don't have market value
They don't have a
itemized,
value assigned to that.
but they do square feet. They show you the square footage of this, that, or the other.
But that square footage, then they apply a number to it to come up with a taxable value.
They might,
They do.
okay,
So you have 100-foot of driveway costs you more on your taxes than 10-foot of driveway.
okay. Well, you could always say, based upon the square footage, the value based upon square footage, or some language like that, as noted in the assessment.
And while we're talking about it, somewhere in our zoning ordinances, we need to stipulate how old a mobile home somebody can drag into Holiday Island. Even if it is only in unit 1, we don't want somebody dragging in 1975.
Well, aren't there some rules and regs on, it seems like I saw that with regard to manufactured housing.
Well, mobile home is before 19,
Or-
whatever, 75 or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
whatever you call those things that they pull on wheels, whether they're called mobile homes or modular homes.
so you're
or
talking
whatever
about in the
today.
unit that allows them to be replaced
Yeah,
Yes.
I mean,
or even built,
unit one is the only unit
on
where you
there.
can even put a trailer in. but,
Yeah, I agree with you.
Um,
I mean, it ought to conform to certain safety standards.
Somebody brought that up to me, I don't remember who it was, but within the last year, somebody brought that up to me that they saw a truck pulling a very old mobile home through Holiday Island, and they were hoping like heck that they were just passing through and not heading to a lot somewhere, because, basically they were, dragging a shack up, somewhere.
Should it have certain square footage? Or should it have to be inspected for certain safety
Um,
conformance?
Well, if we at least stipulate that it had to be manufactured after that magic date that's in the,
Yeah, when they change the standards.
when they change
Oh.
the standards, then at least it should be up to some, some national building.
Didn't HUD also change the name at that point in time? Like in 75 or 77?
They call it
They're
manufactured.
no longer a
However-
manufactured home instead of a mobile home.
But, I mean, we may want to do a little research on that, because even that, if that law was enacted in 1975, that's still 45 years ago, 46 years ago, so, I don't think we want somebody dragging a 45-year-old mobile home into Holiday Island and putting it on blocks
Well,
somewhere.
yeah, I mean, that's a easy way to bypass all the building inspection type stuff. And if you're serious about not having houses that start fires and stuff like that, you should have some sort of inspection
Yeah.
process they have to go through, don't you think?
But here again, we probably don't have to reinvent the wheel. We could find out what cities around here allow mobile homes and if they have any restrictions on it. So that's just a side note.
Yeah, I made a note and
Yeah.
I'll put it in our minutes.
Okay.
Okay, so what I wrote down is we'll settle on 50% of replacement costs versus the county's assessed value. That'll give us 2 points to measure. And I don't think we need to put the language in there that says it's gonna be estimated replacement cost. I mean, that's where we're gonna have to get it from. Someone's gonna say it's gonna cost me $100,000 to do this. Okay, skipping down then to 14.080, the agricultural and natural. In that section were some alcohol issues, and I think that's where we had the definition, trying to determine if bars are permitted. I did a little bit of research on that, and the only thing I could find was in 3-9-205. It talks about rules applicable to liquor outlets. And it says nothing in this subchapter, however, shall be construed as limiting the power of other proper state or local government bodies to regulate the operation of establishments under this subchapter in order to protect the health, welfare, and safety. And then in 3-9-202, it defines alcoholic beverages as intoxicating liquors of any sort other than beer or wine. And it mentions the city of the second class. And then finally, in 12, it says on-premises consumption means the sale of alcohol beverages by the drink or in broken or unsealed containers for consumption on the premises where sold. It doesn't use the word bar in any statute that I can find. It goes on to talk about restaurants, as Jerry's reflected in the past, that you have to meet certain requirements to be a restaurant. But I can't find the word bar in any Arkansas statute, but it says we can regulate where liquor is sold by the drink. So,
And our ordinance limited it to, restaurants,
the one that you, yeah,
the one that we passed,
okay.
specifically written for restaurants.
All right. So, will we be striking the word bar from our regulations, even though they're in the covenants as permitted use?
But if, even if they're in the covenant, we can still, we can make it more restrictive, you know, that's what.
Well,
Yeah.
We can.
Need to put the word in
We
there,
can,
since
but
it doesn't mean anything.
If we're trying to support the covenants, the covenants in some of the commercials say bars are permitted. You know, that's the question, are we gonna say, pardon me?
Isn't it pretty much an undefined word as far as Arkansas is concerned, isn't it? Is there such a thing?
Well, I didn't find the word bar, saloon, pub. I looked for all those descriptions in statutes, didn't find it defined.
I couldn't either. Why do we want it in there if there isn't even such a thing?
The reason I'm suggesting it be in there because it's in the covenants.
Either way would suit me.
I'm okay with not including it.
So where was it we were looking at that?
It occurred in our discussion in 14.080.
1408.
And maybe that's where we were, and we got off topic, but that's when I recorded the minutes, that's where I found we were talking about it.
Okay.
Oh, in 14.080, it's where I added the text that we're going to do the best we can to support the covenants.
Oh, here we are.
Big long chart, and then the list of the units below,
Mm-hmm.
and it shows bars in unit 3. It doesn't show bar in unit 9, and bar is listed in unit 10. So that's why I guess we were talking about it. It's not necessarily about
So certain units where
they
there's
have the
commercial.
commercials. Yeah, the bar is on the covenant list.
Oh yeah, right here. Got it.
I would probably leave it out of the zoning ordinances. At some point, we're gonna have to address business licenses in Holiday Island, and we can reaffirm in, under business licenses that if you wanna operate a business that sells alcohol in any form, you have to serve food also. That way, we wouldn't end up with just a bar.
I can support that.
I like that.
Okay.
That'll work.
In 14.122, in the appeals section, we were to research the requirement for posting notices of hearings. All I found was more posting references to our ordinances, our regs, and our rules, but I didn't find anything about hearings. Jerry, did you happen to find anything?
Well, everything that I saw, it was not municipalities, it were state agencies. The closest thing I found was a general question about notices for levying taxes and things of that nature. But no.
Because our question is, how much do we, what do we have to rely on when we're going to have a hearing for someone asking for a variance?
I didn't follow up to see if they had any other public notice, and this is a real apples and oranges comparison. But when we were in Columbia, South Carolina last week at our sister's house, I was walking the dog around the neighborhood, and they have very large lots in their neighborhood, and the houses are all set way back from the street and everything else. But this one property must have been requesting a variance, a zoning variance for something, And the city had a sign about this big in the front yard of that property, posting a notice that on such and such a date, there was gonna be a hearing about a variance for that property. That may be the extent of what they do to announce that there's gonna be a hearing on something, so that the people in the neighborhood that are affected by it would have every opportunity to see it.
It's a
But
good way.
if you lived on the other side of town and didn't give a hoot, you know, then
I've read that in some Northwest Arkansas communities, they had that text, that they'll put a sign in the yard. And another one did the sign and the certified letters to the neighbors of a certain distance.
As long as you make the property owner pay for the sign. Charge
We could charge
them a
that.
fee to
For the notice.
account for the sign.
The fee for the notice.
Because
And also sending out the letter.
We could put that in our regs.
I can't remember if we made them pay in Oklahoma, but that's exactly what we did. We posted a sign and they were required to notify, neighbors
Surrounding
so
neighbor.
many feet from, the variance.
I've seen that done in Claremore too, but I don't know who paid for it.
that may be something that we wanna run by Justin. It kind of seems a little bit, maybe, I don't wanna say illegal, but can you force somebody to pay to seek a variance? I don't know, it's just,
We force people to seek a building permit.
yeah.
But for every variance, I guess that's the problem I have, you know, some guy has something that needs a 1 inch across something.
only if it required a hearing.
It's kind of like, if you go to the grocery store and you reach down and pick up the candy bar and put it in your pocket, did you steal?
When you left the store, you did.
It was just a candy bar. Because right next to it was a $600 iPod, you know?
Yeah.
I took the candy bar, not the iPod.
As
If you
long
take
as-
the iPod, I would have bought it from you for 300, so you can make some money.
As long as a reasonable person wouldn't look at the fee as being, you know, punitive, you know,
Well, that
that the fee was intended to,
Cover the expense.
well, that, you know, we have to make sure that it doesn't look like the fee is intended to
Discourage it.
deter people
Right.
from seeking
That's
variances.
That's one of the things that it does. It cuts down that they gotta.
They gotta really want it if they,
Well, who is the person, I can't remember the process that well, but where is the decision made to whether to allow a variance or not?
you know.
The building inspector says you're gonna need a variance if you wanna do this,
Mhm.
and then
I think the building
do
inspector.
they say, that seems okay to me, I think we'll just let that one go?
Although not all variances would necessarily require a building permit. Maybe. I'm thinking that there may be something in the, you know, in the zoning ordinances that would require a variance, but not necessarily a building permit.
Well, I mean, we were talking about, I
Like-
don't know whether,
Like if somebody wanted to seek a variance to use their property to,
not make any changes to it, but use it
yeah,
in a
use
different
it
way,
like
yeah,
conditional use,
yeah.
or non-conforming use variance, or, you know. Because I'm a little cloudy about that myself. It seems like I think all variances need to come to the planning commission, but it doesn't seem like all variance requests rise to the level of a public hearing. And,
But how do you approve it if you don't have a public hearing? You're a commission,
they
not a
just
person.
come to the planning commission meeting ask for a variance.
I
and you-
agree.
And you issue it.
Yeah, I would
You
agree.
grant it.
The question is, a hearing has that level of notification. That's the question.
So if they're gonna just come here at a normal meeting and say, I wanna do this, and will you approve it? Get on the agenda or something, or even, I guess
Well,
you
I
could
mean,
just
is
come
it
to the podium.
necessary- Is it necessary that, that this body has to approve every variance? I mean, that's not what you're suggesting, is it?
Well,
I
who
think-
else would approve it? I just don't know.
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure that out.
The planning commission is the body you're talking about, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then if somebody, rejects their ruling, then they file an appeal, and then that would come before us.
And it comes before the Board of Adjustment, right?
I mean, and anybody would have the right to do that, but, I mean, you'll be inundated with requests for variances.
Yeah, that's probably one of the biggest things that the current planning commission does, is, and the typical sequence is somebody starts building a lean-to on their house where they can park their camper or their boat or something, and it's, and the footings they poured are, 3 feet from the property line. So the neighbor says, hey, that's against the covenants, and then calls Mickey, and then Mickey contacts the property owner, and then they discuss it, and sometimes they grant the variance, I suppose, and sometimes they don't. But that's very typical, especially once the word got out that the city was taking over. There was somewhat of a rush to grandfather in all of the storage sheds and
But yeah, no, I agree with that, but I think we need to empower the planning commission to, we'll have the planning, requirements, and, not everything should come before the city board.
Well, the planning commission is us,
Well, it won't be forever.
it won't be for.
but it'll still be a board of people.
That's right.
Yeah, well,
You know-
I think, but I don't think it's a question of whether it comes before the city council or not. The question is, does every request for a variance rise to the level of having a public hearing
No.
separate from the planning commission meeting? And I wouldn't think so.
I wouldn't think so either.
But that means if the answer is no, then we would have to have some guidelines that, what rises to the level of a public hearing and what doesn't.
Well, it's very simple then, in my mind. If they come to a meeting of the planning commission, present their case, and are turned down, then they can request a hearing.
That was my very poorly worded exact.
And the hearing would be with the Board of Adjustment.
Or,
That's the next step.
okay,
Yeah, I mean, they're, just however the hierarchy,
yeah.
Okay.
But, they start with here, get on the agenda, or however we're gonna arrange that. But they would present their case, we say, oh, that's gonna be complicated. I don't think we wanna approve that without more input or whatever, and then it goes someplace.
Well,
Maybe one way to do it is to take the planning commission agenda and have a section at the top called hearing. And all those issues come up under hearing, and then we have our planning commission business after that.
I think we're gonna wanna do something like that because, I'm thinking in like in a big city, in fact, this is happening in Northwest Arkansas on a regular basis. Somebody has this, 200-acre tract of land and it's zoned,
Agricultural.
or maybe it's, agricultural or residential. And they wanna put in a shopping mall. So they seek a variance. And the planning commission says, this is a big deal, we're gonna have a public hearing about it and let everybody have a chance to express their opinion if they wanna you know, a shopping center in their neighborhood, and everybody will show up and they'll say, heck no, the traffic will be horrendous, and, you know, and everything else, and then the planning commission has to decide. You know, that's obvious that a public hearing is necessary. I bet that they don't, you know, do the same thing if somebody comes to the planning commission and says that, you know, I need a driveway into my backyard, but it's gonna be 6 feet or 6 inches over the easement. You know, can I put my driveway in? And I just can't imagine that they'd have a public hearing about that. They would look at the circumstances and say it's harmless and make the decision. And then if the neighbor objects, then, you know, they can always, you know, challenge it or appeal the decision on the variance.
I think we're gonna need, for that initial, coming before the planning commission, I think we're gonna need a way for people to sign up to, or get on the agenda.
Yeah, we'll have a procedure that says you have to do it so many days in advance, you have to bring certain documents,
Right.
and all that has to be in our hands, so we have time to study it before we actually have the hearing.
Mhm.
Yeah.
We'll draft that
And
procedure.
then it should be made available to the public also, what is gonna be on that agenda, what piece of properties are gonna be on that agenda. Because it is interesting, you know, when you read the local newspaper in town and see what came before the agendas of the historic commission, or, you know, the things where they show they've approved this, that, and the other. They approved a green door or a new porch
Right.
or whatever. And you want to, you know, if you live close to those, you want to know what people are doing.
Mm-hmm.
So the note I made that we didn't find any statutes requiring the posting of hearings, discuss modifying the agenda of the planning commission to hold or to have a special section called hearing for issues of conditional use. I think that might solve our problem.
Yeah.
Because we always post those agendas in advance. We'll have a procedure for what people have to do to be prepared for that meeting so that we're prepared.
Yeah.
I think that'll work.
Okay.
In 14.141, the section about location requirements and standards, we had some discussion about the size of these buildings, I guess.
Size of
Yeah.
detached accessory
Right.
buildings.
And so our to-do was for us to come to this meeting prepared with a list of things we see in Holiday Island that we need to see how this regulation should be changed. And we're talking about the size of buildings.
Well, I'll be frank, I haven't seen too many detached accessory buildings unless you'd call a garden shed
It is.
detached accessory building. So those are the only ones I've seen, and those are pretty simple to.
There are several freestanding carports,
And there are freestanding garages.
you know, garages.
There's one under construction just around the corner.
And I could understand if you had, there's probably a property or two with a freestanding workshop in the back of their place. I think,
My next door neighbor has one.
yeah, I think I know a couple of people that might have had them or might still have them. But, you know, that's a common thing someone might want to put in the back of their house. A neighbor of mine has a lot that's way deep, and he was thinking about putting a guest apartment in the back that his kids could stay in when they visited or something. And on a big enough lot, and it's not even hardly visible from the street.
Would probably be easy one for a commission to approve. But this standard in 14.141 talks about how large that building can be.
Mm.
So in our discussion, we said if the guy has a requirement and only has an 800 square foot house and he had 50% limitation, he could probably build a double garage. Where if the guy has a 3,600 square foot house, he could build a 1,800 square foot building.
So 50% of the square footage of the main structure.
Mhm. But that's what I'm saying, if the house was 3,600 square feet, and we need to define that as the foundation, because a two-story building,
Mm-hmm.
1,600 could be a pair of 800s. You know, how big do you want that accessory building to be limited to?
We just want to go off the footprint.
Mhm.
Well, I don't think you'd want it taller than the house, though. That would
There's
look
nothing-
funny.
Yeah,
What about, arriving at some percentage of the lot size? I mean, if a guy's got, you know, a 2-acre lot,
Makes a big
it
difference.
makes a hell of a big difference.
in our ordinances, we can control how much coverage the lot can have for the principal residence. I guess we just expand that for accessories. All right, so now you're gonna be in the discussion of how big is that? How big is too big? 50% of the lot, 28% of the lot, 11% of the lot?
I would say
Not over 25%.
a starting point might be 500, up to 500 square feet, regardless of the size of the dwelling. That would let them build a 2-car garage. To a maximum of equal to the square footage of the house.
Regardless of the lot we're putting it on.
No, that, I'm just saying that's a starting point. Now we can consider, you know, another restriction being, you know, what percentage of the lot can be covered by structures. That no more than 60% of the lot can be covered by structures.
And you use the square footage to measure all that.
Yeah. That would work, I think. It'd give us a starting point.
So read out those.
So up to 500 square feet, comma, and up to a maximum percentage of lot and a maximum square footage of cover. This is what I said. Up to 500 square feet, up to a maximum percentage of foundation. Oh, we're talking about the compared to the principal residence.
You want or 500.
Well, it has to be an and. They all have to fit.
Well, except we're gonna allow 500 on any lot.
Unless
And then the other restrictions.
it doesn't pass the last test of being more than a percentage of the entire lot covered.
Okay, so you're not gonna allow 500 on any lot, you're gonna only 500 if all 3 criteria
Right,
are
it
met.
has to pass all these tests.
It may have to be 2 sentences. It may say that any residence can construct an accessory building up to 500 square feet.
I thought our intent was to
Larger than
500
that
before
would be
the other 2
restricted
criteria.
to,
Now, why are you limiting it to 500 square feet?
So an 800 square foot house could build a 500 square foot double garage.
Isn't the intent we want anybody can build 500 feet,
right,
but, or you could do these if you could meet these other criteria, you could go larger. You see what, that's what we want, right? So it's gotta be an or,
Right.
500 feet or, then the other criteria.
That makes more
You're right,
sense.
It's an or.
Not and, the other 2 could be an and, but this has to be an or.
Yep. We'll have to word it right, but
Yeah,
the question is that the kind of limit we want to put on it?
So read it off.
I haven't got it drafted. I'm just making notes.
Okay, then,
I guess I've got the structure of what we're trying to do.
okay. I think we all agree on what we actually
Except
intend
for
to do.
the percentage of the principal structure. How large is that? This accessory building, how big can it be compared to the principal structure? And the principal structure on residential is the house, in commercial, it's the business. Because a business could have their square footage of a building, and then they have this other building to do other stuff in. So So it's the principal structure
Yeah, I would say,
in this,
That gets tricky with commercial versus residential.
I know,
Because you might have a warehouse that's accessory to the main
It's
function.
actually bigger than.
Yeah.
yeah, I guess I assume.
I would
that we were
have two
talking about
different,
Okay.
two different regs.
residential.
I'll back up. This 141 is just all residential. so-
Okay, I think it ought to be separate for commercial.
Yeah, that's.
So in the reg that we have here for a model, in the single family residence, like what we have in here, that's their R3s, they have 67%. That's what they have. And on their large lots, their estate lots, they have 100%. So they're saying in their reg, their R1s or their big acreages, you can have a building as big as your principal. On the smaller lots, like in Holiday Island, it's 2/3.
So,
So if it's 1,500 square foot house, you can only have a 500 square foot accessory building. Doesn't say anywhere you could have 3 accessory buildings of 500 square
but
feet.
the use of that accessory building has to fit within the uses permitted too, right?
Yes.
I don't think that, I don't think we want to use the square footage as a real estate person would look at square footage of
Right.
heated livable space.
No, I have foundation
Foundation
square
sounds
footage.
right.
We're talking about footprint, we're talking about lot coverage.
Yeah, or roof area.
Yeah,
Or, yeah,
we're doing
whatever.
foundation.
Yeah, foundation would be adequate. I'm just thinking that, I mean, there are, if we had a, what would be an average size if you had an 1,800 square foot house plus the garage, that would be about 2,500 square feet probably.
Mm-hmm.
So, and we're going 60% of that?
Yeah. Well, it'd be 60% of your original size house.
Yeah.
So it's about 1,000. On 1,500, it'd be 1,000 for 2/3.
Just thinking how big a building that is.
1,000 square feet,
That's good
20 by
size.
50.
It'd be pretty big.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We could put a nice workshop for that.
That sounds good enough.
Or a triple garage, an RV size.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
An RV with 2 cars would be 1,000 square feet.
Okay, so are we settling on that then?
Should we say 2/3 then?
Yeah.
So it's 67% of the principal residence structure, and what percentage of total lot coverage? A lot of the covenants say 50% of the lot, and that's because
covers
he
an awful
made a
lot.
lot of small lots with a single house on it.
I like 25%.
25% of my house would work.
Yeah, but what are you gonna put in the back of your
Oh, that's
house?
true. You're talking
I mean,
about-
do we really want you to put something that big in the back of your
No.
house
You wouldn't-
where you
yeah,
live?
I wouldn't have a backyard to do that.
Right.
Uh,
I mean, we should be known for open space, I think, out here.
Mhm.
So you want to say a
Not
limit of
crowded.
not to
with
exceed
buildings.
25% of the lot.
I just throwing it out on the table.
I thought we were talking about total coverage.
Right.
Yeah, total coverage.
Yeah,
But-
not just the addition. 25% of the lot wouldn't take care of a house on some of these lots.
Exactly. That's why I said that most of our covenants have 50% coverage in them.
25%
Well,
coverage,
then,
not the additional building.
I know, if their house covers 25% of the lot, do we really want them putting much more on that lot?
Well, right now, the covenants allow up to 50% of the lot
Most of
on
them.
any lot. So if we say that all structures cannot exceed 50% of the lot, then people like us that have
Small lots.
the smaller lots, are locked out on having accessory buildings, but that, I wouldn't have any place to put one anyway, so.
I don't either, but
I wouldn't even,
If the covenants say 50%, let's just, I don't know why we don't want to stick to that.
yeah, just say 50% or something.
And that's
Okay
an
with that.
and. You gotta meet both those, so it's up to bigger.
And then comes the next question, how do we deal with, right now, the rule about not being able to have a non-residential building on a lot, you know, just an accessory building on a lot is, it's enforced, but loosely
Yeah,
enforced.
really.
Being that if I have a house and I own the lot next door, I can build a 20 by 60, RV garage and boat garage and workshop on my lot next door, as long as I have it connected to my house some way. And I think that has evolved to the point where even a paved driveway connecting the two is adequate to show that connection. And I know that there's an example, I don't know what the street is, but it's up behind 18, some on that loop up there. Somebody just built a really, really, really nice, big
Extremely.
accessory building on the lot next door, and the only thing connecting the two is a driveway. And but it's a really big, I mean, it's got a huge overhead door that you can drive an RV in, and but it's done very well. I mean, I wouldn't object to that being next door to me, but that is, people do that in Holiday Island, and they're allowed, they historically have been allowed to do that. So do we want to
I don't see anything
continue
wrong with
to
that.
allow people to do that?
I think the text in the building codes that we're going to talk about this evening say they have to be connected by a contiguous roof or a wall.
Does it?
I think so.
I'd have to go back and double check that.
I think that's the text we have in that.
That
If you're
To me,
connecting
if-
with the driveway, wouldn't the setbacks come in play?
Oh, certainly, yeah. And this
You would have to
141,
cross the property line between lots.
Now, the setbacks, I don't know that a driveway is considered a permanent structure. The setbacks only impact permanent structures.
I would think you might want to increase the setback from the road on that secondary lot with the accessory building. But on most of our roads, I don't think it makes that much difference. Maybe you only do that in certain units or something, I don't know.
this 141 uses the word setback, it's included, and it talks about sight lines on corners. So we're on page 38 if you're looking for it, Dan.
I agree with Dan, I don't see any problem with that, especially on bigger lots.
So in my case, I've got a lot and then I own the two lots behind my house. If I connect the new building behind my house with a driveway, is that okay?
But it has a road frontage, that lot does.
Is it okay if I connect my house to my new building with a driveway from my house to the new building and the lot behind me? I'm not gonna access the street that it's on.
For most people, yes, but for you, we'd say hell no.
Okay.
I don't know, that's a good question, because we always think in terms of the lot next door, not the
Adjacent.
lot behind you,
Exactly.
which would face another street.
Does it face another street?
Yes, sir. It's on Appaloosa. I have two lots on Appaloosa and I have my house on Quail Run.
And since you own two lots behind you, can you put a big shed on one lot and a big shed on the other lot, and as long as you have them daisy chained
I'm ready.
with driveways.
I'm ready, I have the
Driveways.
quotes. And then I'm gonna come to the board for conditional use, we're gonna start, be a storage unit.
Good luck with that.
It's a real life opportunity,
And it's,
not a situation
it's a
yet.
real life possibility too.
Yeah,
Well, I mean, just for full disclosure, I own a lot next to me, and I'm looking for a way to build an accessory garage there. I mean, it's a wooded lot, deep lot.
right,
You know, we could say that accessory buildings on adjacent lots facing the same street are acceptable.
okay.
Well, I just think you have to consider the appearance from that other street if it's behind your house.
Well, the first sentence in 141 says, an accessory building shall not be located within a required street, front or side setback. So we're not talking about back lots.
What if you got a deep wooded lot and you put the thing right in the middle where it's not visible from the street?
Because it's wooded, you're saying, right?
I think that would be an opportunity for a planning commission to grant a variance because it's not visible.
I do too.
Yeah.
Sure.
I think they could, but so maybe that word visibility has to be somewhere in our, to permit them to grant that.
Yeah, because I can see a situation where since VRBOs have to be allowed because the Supreme Court said they're residential, I could see somebody buying, 3 or 4 lots and putting up, what is, that's a different situation. That wouldn't be accessory buildings. Let's see. I'm looking through the building code right now to see that,
Okay.
so that whatever we come up with is compatible with the building code.
Just do a search on the word contiguous and see if that's in there. I think that's right.
I doubt whether it's in there because that's too big a word for me to use.
Because we talked about it we were in some meeting, we used that phrase. Maybe it's probably in this document. It's probably in this document here. In fact, I know it is. I can do the search. Here's my search tool. Find.
Just scanning it, I don't see where you.
Mine too. Yeah, okay. We defined it in here. An attached dwelling, a dwelling that is joined to another dwelling at one or more sides by a wall or walls or contiguous roof.
That's in the.
That's in this,
In the
in these
zoning
it's these regs that we've been evaluating. Okay.
Where does it say that an accessory building has to be attached?
I don't know that it does.
I don't see it.
I think by definition, an accessory building is not attached. I'm looking for accessory.
Usually, garden sheds
Accessory
aren't.
building is defined as a subordinate building or a portion of the principal building the use of which is customarily incidental to that of the dominant use of the principal building or land. An accessory use is one that the customary, incidental, appropriate, subordinate. Yeah.
Just located on the same lot.
Yeah.
Didn't somebody have a question about the height of one, because it addresses it in C?
Yeah, I did say I didn't think an accessory building should be taller than the main building.
Yeah, it says shall not exceed 25 feet in height or the height of the principal structure.
Oh, good.
That's in what section, Jerry?
141 C.
Okay. All right. So we got
Yeah,
that covered.
okay, we got that covered.
141.
When we're, when we're all done with this,
Yeah,
for the benefit of the building inspector, we're probably gonna have some sort of a cheat
Cheat
sheet
sheet.
that says, if the question comes up about accessory buildings, you know, the pertinent information can be found in these sections of the zoning ordinances, because,
I can build a table of contents for the back of this document that'll put all the
Yeah.
keywords and the page numbers.
otherwise it's
That's a
gonna
good
be,
idea.
you know, they're gonna have to
Word
have
has
one
that
heck of
feature.
a memory to remember all of this stuff.
Yeah.
And when they're brand new to the job, they would have to do a lot of research.
Well, it'll be brand new for all of us when they bring it to the board, or to the commission rather.
So I don't think that we have dealt with an accessory building on an adjacent lot in anything up until now. Because in our definitions, we said on the same lot,
Right.
and the unit covenants don't allow accessory buildings on a lot exclusively, but they stretch the rules by saying if you connect them somehow, then we'll pretend like it's part of the main structure. And so I think it's still something we have to address.
Do we need to add a section?
I think so, because there are dozens of examples in how
I
they have
agree.
it right now.
Very common.
And actually, you know,
Well, look at how many houses just own the lot next door.
yeah, I
mean,
mean, from a tax
it's like all
standpoint,
over.
from a tax revenue and an assessment revenue standpoint, you wanna make
You want
the lots usable for something.
That's right.
As long as whatever they build is nice. You know, not just a Butler building, but a nicely constructed building that resembles the primary residence.
I think we need to add a definition for adjacent lot. So when we use the word adjacent lot, we know from the definitions what that means.
Yeah.
And we're talking about lots that have the same street frontage, right? Okay. So we need a section dealing with accessory buildings on adjacent lots.
And you wouldn't consider adjacent being the lot behind you?
No, there'll be a back lot. It has a different street frontage. In
So-
my case, there
so
are lots that don't have streets
How would
back
you
there.
regulate your accessory building that you're gonna put in the
So
back of your house?
It's not permitted. I mean, if
Oh, it's
that's,
not permitted.
if we're to
Okay.
that point in the discussion,
Okay,
are we gonna allow a building, whatever it is, for the structure on a lot without a principal residence in an R1 area? In R1s, R2s, and R3s, are we gonna allow buildings standing on lots all by themselves?
No, I don't think that we would want to, well, first of all, I don't think we want to allow accessory buildings on freestanding lots, you know, where there's no owner that has a residence in the adjacent lot. I don't think we want to allow the lots behind you, because what would be facing that street would be the back side of the building,
Right.
which would not be compatible with the other residences on the street and stuff like that. And, you know, a driveway going past your house into the backyard to the building in the back isn't as, you know.
It's not conventional.
Yeah, well, it's not architecturally as desirable a connection as if you have a big, you know, U-shaped driveway in front of your house and your nice big shed next door. I think we need to limit it to the lots facing the same street.
actually, I think there may be such a lot that has a some sort of building in back of it. I'm not positive, but it's, I can see it when I go down State Line. And I believe the lot, the structure on the house or structures may extend to the back side, which comes up on some street that runs alongside part of State Line at that point. So there, it may already be out there, but I'm just, I may need to go look at it again and see if I can.
Well, if
See
it's
what
out
it is.
there already, then it's grandfathered, so,
But it grandfathered non-conforming.
yeah.
What we're trying to do is write ordinances for the
Yeah.
future. I know you said we want to avoid that, but that's the reason we're doing it. To put the fences up so that this is what it is, you have to come to somebody for approval.
Hey, and you know what? If someone decides that they want to do this at some point in the future, they could come petition the board to change the regulations too.
Sure.
And that's someplace I read, it said if you're doing that over and over again, granting conditional use, you need to change your reg.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, so I just made a note that we need to add a section dealing with accessory buildings on adjacent lots and define adjacent to have the same street frontage. So I'll work on that text.
And if people, if somebody sees that regulation and says, I object because you're allowing something that's not allowed in the covenant, we can just say, yes, it was approved by the old planning commission over and over and over again as an acceptable, as an acceptable way of conforming to the covenant.
Okay. In 142, we were talking about the accessory uses. And my note says, do this to research the statute that may restrict city from regulating accessory buildings and others to prepare comments for the section. I only found anything in 14-56-301. It's a short one. And it says, in total, it says, cities of the first and second class are authorized to establish zones limiting the character of buildings that may be erected therein. B, zones may be of the three classes. 1, portions of the city where manufactured establishments may be erected or conducted. 2, portions of the city where business other than manufacturing may be carried on. And 3, portions of the city set apart for residences. So I'll go back, the only thing I could find about any accessory buildings was the city has authorized to establish zones limiting the character of buildings that may be erected therein. So I think that's our permission to do it, and that's why we find examples in other cities that they're doing it. So to research the statute that may restrict the city from regulating accessory. I can't find it, this permits us to do it.
Now,
I searched for the word accessory, didn't find anything. There's several hundred where the word building is used, and I went through most of them.
I'm going to bring up a couple of examples of accessory buildings or something that may inadvertently happen if we allow for this much latitude on accessory buildings. You know, I own a house painting business, and I don't have a business. I don't have a building anywhere, that I call my business. I'm just a house painter, and I live at home and I drive my painting truck to work and stuff. It's my private vehicle, and this accessory building is just my garage, except that it has, Goober's painting on the front of it. I made that name up. And, and I happen to have, 250 gallons of paint stored in my garage of all different colors. And I don't really have just one truck as a private vehicle. I really have 3 trucks. And my two sons, who also live here, those are their private vehicles. So they park their private vehicles in front of our accessory building, and it's not a business.
It's a business.
Well, would it be prudent to try to put some language in there in this uses? Would it be prudent to have a special paragraph in here about uses of accessory buildings to ward off somebody trying to actually operate a business out of their accessory building? And the other option is, and we haven't dealt with animals yet, but if we're going to allow animals in certain units, because the covenants allow animals in those units, are we going to allow that accessory building to be a barn or a stable or a chicken coop?
I think there's some sections in here that cover that later on, actually.
It's addressed.
And also with regard to the signage on the garage, I believe that's prohibited
Well,
later on
It's
somewhere.
addressed, yeah.
But the signage would be the least of the problem.
I don't think so. I think the signage is a pretty big deal.
Well,
It destroys the character of the neighborhood.
but
Chris may disagree, he may think that 250 gallons.
Well, and I think that's a hazard, a fire
That's a hazard.
hazard.
Well,
Well,
there's
we
proper
do-
ways to store it. Flammable.
here again, we bring up examples because it's already happening or
Yeah.
has happened in Holiday Island.
Yeah.
There is a house painting business that parks, 3, probably, I think on average, 3 of their company trucks in the front yard. And it's not an accessory building, they just have the whole front yard full of commercial vehicles. And
How big are the vehicles? Because it addresses that you can't have more than, not more than 1 truck or not more than 1 1/2 ton capacity on, residential area.
What section is that in, Jerry?
That's, B9. The section we're talking about,
Of 142?
142.
Right.
I believe that these were the typical panel vans. Maybe a pickup truck and a couple of panel vans.
A pickup truck is like a 1/2 ton.
3/4.
This idea of something one we're doing.
It's just something to think about because it can really, something like that can.
I think what you're talking about is 142 is the home occupations permitted. There's a whole list of them in there that have been permitted. We struck bar. Whoops, my page changed. So as far as what we can use, maybe we need to expand that list for storage of business materials.
It's the vehicles that
Right.
are the most objectionable. When the person next door's front yard becomes a parking lot for their work trucks, then
Another big issue, and Linda brought it up, is the signage. And
covenants basically prevent signage now, so at some point, is signage addressed in the zoning ordinance?
Yes.
Yeah.
There are a couple sections at the very bottom of this list that have signs, but there's an entire section on signs that I marked as reserved.
Yeah, because most cities now say that even like McDonald's and Dollar General and stuff, you know, those signs can't be more than so high off the ground and stuff like that.
So some of those concerns that you have, Dan, about what we limit to go on is listed in 142.
As far as the vehicles go, I mean, just driving around the neighborhoods around that are even close to where I live, I have passed by, and even on Holiday Island Drive, I mean, there are houses that have 4, 5, 6 cars in front of them. And in other neighborhoods, not on Holiday Island Drive, but there are multiple trucks and cars at the same residence. And you just wonder, you know?
Yeah. And it is, you know, it's something that's, there's one right up the street from me, you know, that they have 4 vehicles parked, and they park them at an angle, the angle park, to be able to get them all in the driveway without
yeah.
having to shuttle vehicles every time somebody wants to come and go. And the way they do it, it's not the worst. I mean, I've seen a lot worse.
I just, every time I drive by there, I wonder what's in the garage.
And then, yeah. Well, with that many people living there, and there's a camper, you know, a 5th wheel camper alongside of the garage, and you know, one has to wonder once in a while if somebody isn't maybe living in the camper, but I don't think so. But
Where do we address campers? Is that in this section?
Oh, do you mean just parking a camper
Yeah.
next to your house?
Yeah.
Or an RV or something? I
don't think
it's in this. It's not part of buildings. It ought to be an ordinance covering something else, I would think, wouldn't you?
I'm not sure that the city has the authority to block somebody from parking a RV alongside their house, as long as it's not a safety issue or you know, blocking the view of traffic or something like that. It's one of the ones that people are going to be disappointed that the city can't do something.
Or in their driveway for limited, you know, for a weekend or something like that.
But, you know, one of the problems with Holiday Island and these tiny little lots is that, you know, there are families living in these houses that have 3 and 4 drivers in the family. They all have a car. It's got to go somewhere.
Yep.
And you know, so we can't hardly, you know, say that you can't park the vehicles, you know,
Right.
in the yard. But by the same token, you don't want to allow a VRBO to be able to park cars all the way around the house.
Yeah, I think there's got to be some limitations on parking not on paved spaces.
And I get confused about what have I researched and what am I finding here that we're working on, but I've read where they have some regulations about the width of the driveway. And like there's on Holiday Island Drive, they paved the entire front of the house so they can park 5 cars.
Mm-hmm.
I think I've read it, there's places we can limit that. That the driveway can't be more than 1 car width wider than the garage, some language like that. So you can have a double garage with a 3rd parking space for your RV, but at least it's on paved surface.
Mm-hmm.
Now, people, if the house has a 2-car garage and there's 3 vehicles in the family and all 3 of them are parked in the driveway, you know, that's a personal problem that, you know, but I don't know if I only say this because, you know, we had 3 kids of driving age, you know, at the same time. We had 5 cars in the family at one time. We just were always fortunate enough to have a huge house with a huge driveway and stuff where wasn't a problem. But if we lived here back then, I would have had at least 2 or 3 cars parked in the driveway all the time. So here again, you know, are we going to rule out having large families move into Holiday Island because there's no place to park their cars?
Well, no, but, I mean, there's gotta be a way to protect the investment of neighbors. I mean, there's some, and I can name one, and Linda will know what I'm talking about. They've got 3 pickups, and 2 of them fit in the driveway, and 1 of them's in the yard. And that literally takes up, you can see the house.
Yeah, it covers the whole front of the
The
house.
whole front of the house. That's after he moved the storage building he had in the front yard to the back. So, I mean,
That, I don't know, there's gotta be some kind of balance there. And if it, you know, if there's 2 people living in the house and they have 5 vehicles, because they each think that they need to have a pickup truck and a car, and then their antique collector item car and stuff like that, you know, I guess I don't have a lot of sympathy for that either, but
A couple of those.
you know, you can't have your whole car collection in your driveway.
how do you regulate that? I mean,
Oh, Wes.
No. If you're
Well-
here for the city council meeting, you're really, really early.
Well, and I was trying to get into this one on time, but I wouldn't admit me.
Really?
Yeah,
I never saw it come up.
so it's like from 9:05 to 9:40, and it just said the host will admit you soon.
Are you sure you typed in the right number? Hit the right, are you sure you clicked on the right?
Did the link to on the website to the meeting.
Click on the
on the
website.
agenda.
Hmm.
And it did take me to a meeting, but then it said, you know, that the host will admit you.
Well,
So that means the meeting was started.
you know,
You just didn't see him waiting.
well, maybe I didn't see him waiting.
All right.
We were kind of involved in conversation, so I may not have looked down the few minutes you were on.
We need to solicit a volunteer to manage our Zoom. It's not fair to Linda to take her away from our meeting to spend that much time administrating the meeting.
Yeah.
And it might be a subject to ask tonight when you got supposedly a bunch of people here. Who would like to volunteer to sit at that table and be the administrator of our Zoom meeting?
let's not ask that question.
Okay.
Or maybe we don't need to have the planning commission meetings on Zoom.
That's another thought.
Or the Zoom is only a broadcast material. We will not monitor chat. We will not monitor hands up.
If we go to a
It's only for
broadcast method,
broadcast.
then we wouldn't have to worry about any of that.
Right.
That's what we
It's
need.
probably
to
the
do.
best way.
Use the Zoom app for broadcast only. We won't monitor that.
After we
The
get-
issue is though for folks joining.
Yeah.
Someone still has, and we need to say, after 15 minutes, we won't look for people wanting to join. Something like that.
That would be good too.
That's how we eliminate that problem of missing someone at 9:20 wanting to join our meeting.
But after tonight's meeting, we can maybe think about that, or at the end of the meeting, discuss what we want to do perhaps.
Okay, so I made some notes and to consider how to limit the use of accessory buildings, and just remind myself, C 142 et sec. And polish. Okay. thanks for coming as far as you could.
All right.
All right, so we're gonna pick up discussion then in 143.
Okay.
I think we went through 142 pretty much. The notes that I see here, I think we talked about. So 143 is non-residential accessory uses. These are allowed in association with the permitted non-residential principal use. So it's pretty much commercial stuff. We can skip it for now if you want.
It does have a sentence in there, such uses shall not be allowed if such use would cause or increase parking
What page is-
nonconformity.
143 is on page 40. You're right,
These are basically commercial.
yes,
Yeah.
the whole section's commercial, so I could make that reserved rather, because our goal is
Yeah.
to get as much as we can about the residential, all included, and get
agree.
it passed.
That's a good idea.
I'll just change it to reserved, and we'll leave it off for now. I like that, yellow. Okay, scrolling down then, we're at 160. Special conditions applicable to certain uses. 160 is uses permitted for those subject to conditional use approval shall be subject to the requirements of the district provisions as supplemented or modified by this chapter. So I think a lot of it is, again, commercial use, because the first subject is 161, adult entertainment.
I question whether we need that at all. Or-
If we don't put a regulation and restricting it or controlling it, it can happen any place.
Oh, okay, I see your point then, yeah. Why don't we just say not allowed at all?
Well, rather than that is why I put in the yellow in section B, a distance of 2,640 feet. So if you take Holiday Island and pick any corner in the town and draw a half-mile circle, you pretty much keep it out of the community.
I just don't think we want it at all.
I agree, but I don't know that we can regulate it not at all. I don't know if we can say not at all.
I think you can.
Would you be willing to research that? Can we restrict it so not permitted at all? Are we permitted to do that? We decided not to permit a bar.
It's almost, 2,600 feet,
Half mile.
half a mile. I think you've effectively eliminated it, so.
Up it to a mile.
I thought about that. In fact, I had 5,260 typed in there one time.
And then I guess you would only need the B paragraph.
That'd be fine. We could strike A and just take the separation of other out of B, and that could stand alone. And C, all those things in quotes are defined up in the definition section.
This subject will be dealt with again when we get to, I don't know if it's title 3 or 4, 3, I think, that deals with morals.
Mm.
You can actually have ordinances dealing with morals. And there's language in there that makes even me blush to use in public.
I didn't want to read it out loud either.
The way, the detail to which they get into adult entertainment and what,
And activity.
yeah, and activity.
I'm all in favor of striking A entirely and rename B A, and then the bottom, taking out the separation of other uses in B, and to start with the building housing of adult entertainment shall be located at least so many feet from all these, and it includes every situation we have in our community. Single, duplex, multifamily, as well as schools and daycares and libraries and churches.
I'm just glad, I'm looking at the map, I think you'd have trouble finding a spot that wouldn't be
A half a mile away.
half a mile away from any of those other things anyway.
Well,
So,
I'm just saying, why not make it, if we don't want it, why not make it obvious and make it 5,000 or 10,000 feet?
There you go, 10,000 feet.
Round it off, round off the
3
number.
miles.
And I also remember reading when it gave these distances, it actually said, as measured from the nearest corner of one structure to the nearest corner of the other structure.
So it's a
So that you
straight
can-
line?
No, if you have a square
Measurement?
building, you draw 4 circles, and then that other buildings can't be any portion inside your circles.
Okay,
I don't think it makes any difference.
Because otherwise they could say, well, I measured from our front door to their front door,
mhm,
or I measured from the driveway to their driveway, or something like that, and
It's the last sentence in B, defined by the radius measured from the nearest exterior wall
yeah,
of the subject
oh,
building.
okay,
there it is,
Okay.
that's it.
Well, I remember reading it, because I just read it 2 minutes ago.
So with everyone's concurrence, I'll strike paragraph A altogether. And take out the first part of B, separation of other uses. But to Linda's point, if you'll research that, if we can restrict it and not permit it at all, I'm in favor of that as well. Just not even have the whole section.
I'm just not sure how to research it.
Just do search on adult entertainment. You don't have to read all the sordid language.
Like adult entertainment regulations
In
in
the
cities or in
In the
municipalities?
stats
or-
and municipalities.
Okay,
I limit my search, I go 14 for municipalities, and I scroll down and I turn off all the county and first-class city stuff. It makes the search more effective.
okay.
Okay. We've marked 162 for
Okay.
wreckage, storage, or salvage and junkyards for future. Car washes, 163. I did not find any problems with the text that's there.
Let's see.
Okay. And then a little bit ago, we talked about emergency housing units in 164. And this is just the ability to create a separate space on your property to take care of someone, whether it be an elderly or some other handicap.
Is this where I read they limited it? No, it's 1 year and you can renew it each year. Okay,
Yeah,
that
that's at
was,
the bottom.
that was it.
So I didn't have any problem allowing that percentage or that use.
What, but unit type, it says only manufactured housing units may be approved for emergency placement. But maybe that's just emergent, well, I guess
It's-
all these have to be an emergency placement.
Yeah, I think what they're saying is that you can't put a motorhome there and house your mom in it.
What
Has
if you
to be
want to
in-
build something to put her in?
It's a manufactured house. It'd be like a double wide or something you move in there and set on a foundation. A
What if
manufactured
you
home.
just want to build it from scratch?
Then it wouldn't be an emergency housing unit. It'd be a
Permanent
It'd be a accessory use building.
Oh, so this is as opposed to an accessory use building?
Yeah. as I
So
read it,
would this type of situation be covered under accessory use building?
no, because accessory use buildings are talking about not living in them.
Right,
This is talking about putting someone to live in it.
right. So why would I want to put up a crappy, excuse my word, a manufactured house if I have a, you know, a decent house and I want to put my mother-in-law in that,
In an apartment.
in a nice little apartment?
Yeah.
Why should I be forced to do a manufactured house instead of just have someone build one in 3 months?
This is, 14164 is intended to be temporary during the emergency.
That's true.
And the mobile home you can make go away. If you build
Well, after my mother-in-law dies and moves out, it's my she shed.
Or it's, or it's a place where my kids stay.
Yeah,
Or
exactly.
you sell the house to somebody else that turns it into a VRBO.
Or puts their little home business back there, their little
Yeah.
accounting firm
Which is what
business
we don't
back
want.
there.
Which is what we don't want.
Well, Wes might want to move his accounting business to a separate little unit in back of his house rather than,
He may want
clutter
to.
up his house with it.
He may want to, but.
And
are we
Susan
going
may want him to
allow
do that too.
Because if we're gonna let Wes move his accounting
But
business.
he
back
might not
there,
be living there, he might just be doing his office work there. What's wrong with that?
It's operating a business in a residential area.
With no sign?
Home businesses are permitted.
They're permitted.
In 142, it says, permitted home occupations shall not include the employment
So
of persons.
We're expanding emergency housing unit definition.
No,
to say-
I was getting back to accessory buildings,
Okay.
actually.
So we're going to allow people to build accessory buildings specifically to use as a work from home business.
People are using them for workshops. They might be selling their wood turning products out of their house.
Yeah, at one level, I'm not opposed to it, but I'm just wondering if it's one of those cans of worms where you never would have dreamed that somebody would have been doing this, under the umbrella of that clause, in their backyard. Like a home distillery or.
Okay, to answer that, we're looking at 142, section B, home occupations permitted. And to your point just now is under number 2, that creates no objectionable odor, noticeable vibration, or offensive noise that increases the level of ambient sound at the property lines. So I can't run my table saw at 2 o'clock in the morning because it creates noise for my neighborhood.
And it does not involve external display of goods or services.
So I can't
It does
park
not
my
cause
benches on the yard.
unsightly conditions or waste visible from off of the property. It doesn't interfere with any type of communication signal reception in the vicinity. It does not include the employment of any persons not residing on the premises.
So I can't have
So you
people
can't
come to
run-
work.
You can't run your table saw at 2 in the morning, but can you run it all
Yeah.
day,
Right.
during the day, off and on?
I guess until someone complains,
I think wasn't there a sound
But
thing?
when they complain, then,
then you have to stop running your table saw.
because of what?
Because it's a business. You're making stuff that you're selling. If it's my hobby and I'm fixing my house or remodeling, you can't stop me from doing that. Maybe at night you can, but during the day, you'd be hard pressed. During normal
It
waking
says
hours.
it can't have offensive noise that increases a level of ambient sound at the property lines.
And we're talking about a business use,
You're right.
a home occupation. Because routers make a lot of noise too. And if I had a sign business, that might be objectionable to some people.
Okay, as long as we don't think that somebody is gonna,
I think these
Take
are
advantage
pretty
of
well thought
that
out
and,
regulations here of what you can and can't do with a home business. They've thought of quite a few things.
So we're back to 164, emergency housing unit.
Mm.
yeah.
If it's emergency, I guess that's fine. I just
But you're right, you know,
I just think there ought to be a way that you could
There
have an
aren't very
accessory
many,
building for your mother-in-law.
Probably aren't very many lots in Holiday Island where you could even, in trailers are only allowed in unit 1, and now we're saying under emergency conditions, you could pull a trailer in.
No, it has
in
to be
B it says-
manufactured.
In B, it says unit type, only manufactured housing may be approved for emergency placement.
Yeah. I don't know that we want to even allow that. I'm almost opting to scratch that whole section.
Honestly, I didn't run across that anywhere else. I just see it in Tawny Town.
We only allow manufactured in 1 and 2? Is that
In
true?
one,
Just one? Okay.
new ones.
So,
Well, there are, you can have a manufactured house anywhere in Holiday Island, actually. You know, they bring it in modularly and set it up on
I
a
think we talked about
foundation.
that last meeting, didn't we?
I believe so.
A 2,000 square foot,
Right.
4-section.
You can't hardly tell the difference.
as long as it's on a permanent foundation.
Yeah, as long as it's on a permanent foundation.
Right.
Right.
This doesn't talk about permanent foundations.
Oh, it
Yeah.
doesn't?
No,
Okay.
because it says it's a placement.
Yeah, first of all, there probably aren't that many lots in Holiday Island that are big enough to even pull a mobile home in next to the house.
Mm-hmm.
And, or maybe even get it behind the house on a flat enough lot. And secondly, I think people would scream bloody murder if they lived in, let's say they lived on the island and they had, a lot of the, Wes's lot is big enough probably to be able to get a trailer between his house and the core line in his backyard. But boy, his neighbors wouldn't be happy if he pulled a trailer in there.
Well, I don't think we ought to allow the trailers, no.
Okay, so I'm changing the text in the first sentence, emergency housing units shall not be allowed as conditional uses. And the rest of the paragraph goes away.
So do we even know what the definition of that is up front, so you know what it is?
Yeah, look real quick.
I'm thinking you just scratch the whole paragraph,
Don't even put in the text at all.
I wouldn't have thought of it
Emergency
if I
housing
hadn't
unit
seen
is a
it.
manufactured housing unit, a residential design manufactured unit that is located on the same lot as the principal single-family dwelling to be used solely for the purpose of providing temporary accommodations for a family member in need of daily assistance due to health reasons. Such reasons shall be certified by a licensed physician. So that's defined.
That's pretty well defined.
And getting that permit or that certification from a physician would not be difficult. You could go doctor shopping to find
Right.
one that'll write you the prescription. If we're going to allow it, then we'd have to say, okay, where can you put it? Can you put it in your front yard, as long as you have enough room, behind the easement?
I would defer to the accessory use buildings and whatever rules we have in there. So Do we say they're not permitted, or do we just strike it all together and don't address it?
Go with not permitted.
That'd be my
And
preference.
since we have a definition of emergency housing units, then we could leave that section in there and just say not permitted. And, someday, if, you know, the situation warrants it, maybe we could change it. Because the next thing that's gonna come up is then, you know, well, I own the lot next door, so this would allow me to put a trailer next door as long as I connected it to my house with a sidewalk or a driveway. And, I don't know, it's just, I think it would be a can of worms. And I think the chances of this even coming up are slim to none. Most people, if they, you know, grandma's gonna, if they have to take care of grandma, they make an apartment for her in their house.
Okay, so I've shortened it up with shall not and strike out all the rest of the text. Okay,
Also, back under residential accessory uses 142, you brought up animals. At the top of page 40, it lists commercial stables, kennels, and animal boarding and care facilities as being prohibited
right.
as a home occupation. I think that's a good thing.
But what if it's not? What if
But
it's just
I don't see
just
where
my
a
four-
stable is
Yeah.
covered.
I just have 4 horses and a cow.
Yeah,
you know,
or what if I have a
my
kennel
pets,
out and back
and
for
they're in my
5
accessory
dogs that
building.
I'm training?
And
Personally.
Every Saturday morning, I haul a load of manure out of my accessory building.
Okay.
You know, and I only bring that up because there have been, I mean, Flanagan, Chris Flanagan, and he's got unit 18, I think, he owns unit 18. He's got a barn out there and goats and sheep and all kinds of stuff.
You used to have chickens on Holiday Island Drive.
Yeah, so, I mean, that's gonna have to be zoned, that whole unit is gonna have to be zoned, you know,
Agriculture.
residential, agricultural or something.
Well, this is our first blow through it, so we'll have opportunity to go through it again. I'm scrolling down to 165, manufactured housing parks. And the note that I made, do we need changes here for unit 1 that allows mobile homes? And that's probably an appropriate place where we maybe put that age limit thing in.
Okay. Manufactured housing parks, is that defined? Yes, it's defined. A tract of land in one ownership that is used or intended to be used by 2 or more manufactured housing units and which has public sanitary sewer facilities, public water, electricity, and other utilities available. In other words, they want to put
A
a
mobile
mobile
park.
home park,
Mhm.
you know,
A
with,
manufactured housing park in today's language.
yeah.
Someone wants to
Hey,
develop
we don't
a
want
plot.
that. Can we
Hmm?
say that's disallowed?
We can.
I don't think we
We
want
have
it,
to
do we?
allow manufactured housing.
One
at
lot,
least-
one house.
Yeah, we have to allow manufactured housing in at least one zone or district in our community. That's the law.
But you don't
But we
have
don't
to
have to
allow
permit parks.
multiple ones.
Right, we don't have to permit parks.
Right. I don't want parks. Does anyone else?
No.
Well, I'm thinking about our jurisdiction that's outside our current city limits,
Mhm.
and we've got an area from 23 toward our line, and there may be opportunity for someone to build a mobile home
Sure.
park. And because it's in our jurisdiction and development, subdevelopment, we can take care of it, and this would help address that.
And there are some real nice over 55 mobile home parks in other parts of the country and other, even nearby, that are on lakes and things like that. So it is a popular concept
Especially in the affordable housing
in the
arena.
affordable housing arena, right?
So we can leave the text here.
Make
We
it
can leave the
reserved.
text in and just not have any unit or part of a unit zoned for mobile home parks.
For manufactured housing parks. It's
Yeah.
not permitted. We can
Right.
put that in our chart, that they're not permitted in any of these R's areas.
Right.
And then
So
if
somebody
something
wants
comes
to
up
put a
in the
mobile home
future-
park in unit one, and they can find enough flat ground to be able to do it, they could do it.
Well, we'd have to consider it though, to permit it.
We don't prohibit it, so.
Well, I think we should.
Why?
I'd like to see what it would look like before I permitted it.
Here again, it's never gonna happen, because unit one's already plotted, and unless somebody wants to buy up, 30 lots to put on the same street to make a mobile home park, then it's not really a mobile home park, it's just.
Well, how well is that
30
defined?
single-family residences in a unit that allows mobile homes.
Well, it says that the minimum lot size should be at least 4,350 square feet and shall not occupy more than 50% of the lot area. They have to be 20 feet apart. There has to be parking. Paved space for parking of 180 square feet. Driveways are defined. Signage is defined. Fire protection, water lines and sewer, underground utilities, inspections, and then it says if it has more than 30 units, it has to have a resident manager. So it's pretty well defined. I don't know that it could happen in unit one. I was just thinking about the future for outsider community.
It would be the only property that I can even think of that when you go out on Woodsdale here, that just outside of the city limits there, I think Roysters own quite a bit of acreage. Their house is way up on Pleasant Ridge, but there's quite a bit of flat ground in between their house and Woodsdale. Someday that could conceivably be a mobile home park. And then where the land that Hunter Slade owns across from Wolf Fitness, that's probably flat back far enough from the. But either way, to get public, they'd have to convince HICID to run sewer and water to them.
No, we would require the developer to put the sewer and water to connect to HICID. We'd require them to do that on their expense, on their dime.
Right, but
Okay.
HICID would probably never agree to connect them as long as they're not within the district. If they were next to the district.
And that's the issue we have to face, that we have a district definition and we have a city limits definition. What does the future look like for that relationship?
As long as the district owns the sewer and water, it is in their regulations as to whether or not they will approve hooking up to anybody outside of the district. And the chances are slim to none because they're not getting any assessment revenue off that property. So now they could annex. I mean, everything south of Highway 23, the whole commercial area and the bluffs and everything, that wasn't in the original Holiday Island, that was annexed. So it could happen. So leave it in and, it never happens, it doesn't hurt anything.
Okay. I made a note that, well, we should add not permitted use in our zones, in our residential zones.
Yeah.
Just as a note for myself. Okay. So 146 talks about that manufactured units do not meet the definition of a housing unit. They're only permitted in this RMH, which would be our unit 1. Exchange or replacement of existing shall only be permitted in accordance to, I got some note there, we have to chase down the damage and destruction to see if we need to change that to accommodate the permission. But this would be the place that we probably would define how old they could be added to.
Mm-hmm. And, you know, I think we need to do a little research on that, but I think 25 years is probably the limit that we should allow. We don't want even unit 1 being the place where all old house trailers go to die.
Right. Okay. So the text in 167 is probably right out of the law books, is my guess. Talking about how they're built. I didn't find any exception to make to that, because I haven't researched what standards or compliance with all the standards of this section required in order for a manufactured housing unit to be classified as residential design. This may be one of those areas where the director of the Northwest Regional Planning Commission suggested that there are some things that need to be fixed. And by the way, I tried making a contact with the recommendation to contact the mayor. I've talked to 4 different people and none of them are the mayor yet to see what concerns in these codes. And if I don't get resolved from him, I'll probably contact the guy from the Northwest Arkansas. Anyway, 168, food vendors, I marked that reserved. We have food vendors that are parking in a couple different places in Holiday Island, so sooner than later, we probably need to do some work with food vendors. (169) Temporary uses and structures. They're not used for dwelling purposes, may be placed on a lot or a parcel occupied only for the following conditions. So it kind of helps answer some of those things we've been talking about. I didn't make any notes for areas of concern. Anybody see anything of an issue?
No.
Okay. 170, farm animals. So I put some things in blue here to think that maybe we need to consider that no more than 4 farm, domestic, or household animals over the age of 4 months shall be kept, maintained, or harbored. Is 4 a number? 12 a number? I know I've seen people post on social media they have 6 dogs and 2 cats.
Not a farm animal, though.
No, that's true. Well,
Let's see what the
it
definition
says
is.
domestic or household animals in the comma.
Well, there's,
Farm, domestic, or household.
yeah, I know
Uh,
of at least
the,
one family that has more than 4 dogs.
what about the Tims?
Yeah, that's.
Mhm.
But they're only that, those
They're
aren't
only that
dogs.
big.
They're canines of a small size.
Good.
In the last year, I've seen a case, there was a discussion about people with pot-bellied pigs.
Oh, yeah.
4 pigs.
Well, that was in Eureka Springs, that they banned potbelly pigs, and
As a household.
that created a huge stir.
The definition for farm animal is any animal customarily raised in an agricultural rather than urban environment for profit on farms and has the potential of causing a nuisance if not properly maintained. It doesn't mention dogs anywhere.
Does it define household animal? Or domestic
Animal,
Animal domestic, animal household?
no, it doesn't. There's animal care limited, a use providing small animal boarding or veterinary services, but there is no animal general.
Okay.
And the other thing up here is agriculture, comma, animal, the use of any land for the purpose of raising livestock. So this animal, comma, farm is an animal, an agricultural environment animal, such as would be raised on a farm. It says it doesn't include hobby chicken.
Yeah, chickens are addressed in the next section.
So it seems limited to not dogs. I mean, not dogs and cats.
I'm looking at this middle sentence here. In
Where does it say?
residential district, no more than 4 farm, domestic, or household animals over the age of 4 months shall be kept, maintained, or harbored.
I don't think we should have any farm animals. And if that means we need to have another paragraph that deals with dogs and cats, then, we can do that under, domestic pets or something like that.
Why don't you strike from that sentence the word,
Take the domestic and
yeah,
household out.
just say for farm animals. And yeah, take out the household,
Okay.
domestic household type.
So the answer, Dan's, should we permit farm animals at all?
No, I don't think so.
I don't either. But we'd
I
be
don't
going
want a pig
against the
next door to me.
covenants.
The covenants
Can
allow
we go?
horses in 5 different units, I think.
But we
Yeah.
could,
that
but the
doesn't
city
mean that
can go,
We
can regulate over the covenants.
Yeah, we can still prohibit it even though the covenant.
And
may
not,
have allowed it.
and not be subject to suit for taking away value?
Somebody,
I think it adds
suppose they
value.
could challenge us on it.
I would argue it would add value.
Well, that's what I'm saying. We'd have to go to a court to find out.
I think, I'm for prohibiting them.
Don't they, in those units that allow horses and stuff, don't they have to have more than so much acreage?
More than a half acre. So basically 2 lots.
That's not a lot of space.
No.
Someone else is gonna be living pretty close by,
If not now, someday.
someday, yeah.
Or because the guy's got a horse there, I can't sell my lot.
Yeah,
Because the guy,
exactly.
nobody wants to buy my house because there's a horse next door.
Right.
Even though he's 300 feet away, there's a horse next door.
In fact, that came up, that, a guy bought a lot, a guy from Atlanta bought a lot on Eagle Drive. He bought it sight unseen from his, co-worker, whose mother was wanting to sell their lot in Holiday Island, and he was so excited about having a lot and everything, and then he came over here and drove down there and found his lot and saw the goats and chickens across the street, and,
Oh, so we already have some. Oh, so what would that,
I don't think the
do.
goats are there anymore, but the house on the corner of Eagle and Valley, I believe, or Eagle and Wild Turkey, no, Eagle and Valley, I think. He had chicken wire cages, or not cages, but big chicken wire fenced in areas.
Hmm.
He had goats and chickens, and it's somebody that I think we all know. I don't remember who lived there. But, I mean, he's not I don't think he's otherwise a problem. And where he lives now, because nobody lives even close to him, it was pretty harmless.
Sure.
But, you know, we're thinking of the future.
And pygmy goats are really cute, actually. They're like big dogs,
But a goat's a goat.
but a goat,
They'll eat anything.
they will eat anything, yeah.
And, you know,
Probably find a way
there
to
are
get out
places in
too.
Holiday Island where we could use some goats.
Yeah.
So the first sentence, animals and fowls where permitted in a district, we're gonna say are not permitted in a district. So we don't need any other language if that's what we say. Not permitted in any district, period.
Does that mean that if there is somebody that may have some out there somewhere in one of our hinterlands, that they would have to come before the planning commission or the board of adjustment to get a conditional use permit or something?
I don't know the answer to that. You know, when pig one dies, can I buy pig two?
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. I mean, it might be happening, and we don't know it. I mean, that guy you talked about, he might still be there.
I think he actually even had a donkey at one time. I might be wrong about that.
Put it in, we can see
So
what
it
happens.
says they're where permitted in a district. So we could say farm animals in our graphic, not permitted, not permitted, not permitted. And this text could stay.
Yeah, I think that's better.
I see what you're saying.
You know, can't have farm animals in these areas. Maybe in a commercial we would allow it. Maybe you want to have a veterinarian set up a business.
Well,
So
that's,
they would be permitted.
But that
He
doesn't
has
fall under this.
He has a pet cow. Keeps it at his veterinary shop.
Well,
I don't know. I'm just looking for examples of what could happen. We can say it's not permitted in residentials, and the rest of the paragraph isn't a problem, because the first, it says, where is permitted shall be kept in accordance with this code.
yeah.
Well, having grown up on a farm, if you have 4 horses,
You're gonna notice it.
you're gonna have a manure pile.
Yeah.
And,
There's gonna be a noxious odor for the neighbors.
yeah, and that gets into the health and sanitation code, which we haven't written yet. But,
Yep.
you know, 4 pygmy goats, no problem. You know, 4 Belgian horses, big problem. 4 dairy cows so that I can have my own raw milk and make my own cheese, that's a problem. 1 pot-belly pig, probably not a problem. 4, that's a little different.
Maybe the last sentence is what helps us in B. The grazing animals. Follow the extension office recommendations to ensure the health and safety of the animals, the owners, and the neighboring properties.
And, you know, 4 is too many. Well, first of all, a question, when you say district, are you talking about units?
Zoning districts.
Yeah.
Our zone district.
Okay.
The statutes talk about districts. This uses the word district when we're talking about the zone. The R1 district, the R2 district, the C1 district.
And you're
Not
gonna,
talking about districts of Holiday Island.
and you're gonna say they're not permitted there?
I might note, add not permitted in our zones or our districts.
So only residential. You're-
Well, I put R, but we're gonna say they're not permitted in residential areas, R1, 2, and 3. We can decide what we're gonna do, conditional permits or whatever for the Cs, for the commercials, conditional use.
I think we're better off just going with, no farm animals for now and see what kind of blowback we get.
Okay, so
Because
I'll change the first sentence, animals and fowls are not permitted in any district, period.
I mean, the only other alternative in my mind would be to say, instead of saying in districts, that we would in fact somehow refer to the units, because there are some units where, animals are allowed.
Except that the unit that Jerry and I live in is one of those units. And I don't think we want them across the street. Much as I love animals. Unit 5.
Yeah, there was a long list of allows horses. Not a long list, I think it was 5 units I found.
And
Then I
believe
think we have to
Unit
go
5 is one of them.
with farm animals are not permitted. I don't see how we can.
I say, make it not permitted and we deal with it when it comes up.
Okay,
If we were, like P Ridge, where we had,
Gobs of
estate
farmland,
lots
yeah.
that are 3 acres, and, and you got plenty of room for, a couple of horses.
Big
yeah,
difference, big
right.
difference.
We're just not plotted that way.
and that's probably why the Tontitown does have a lot of flat area and they're developing, they're stretching out their boundaries, so
Yeah.
they've got it in theirs, we don't need it. Okay, so it's gonna be one sentence, animals and fowls are not permitted in any district, period. Everything else is gone.
And Animal Farm is exclusive from the next one, which is chicken hobby.
Hobby chickens?
Mhm.
Well, they've taken the time to explicitly talk about hobby chickens.
Right. So they're a totally different category than Animal Farm,
Yeah,
farm
and
animal.
hobby chickens are getting to be very commonplace in every city.
Are they?
So I think that we're probably gonna wanna allow hobby chickens.
Okay, so do we want to limit to 4 hens
Sounds fine to me.
and no birds in multifamily complex? So,
Absolutely.
okay, and then I added the
No
words in D,
roosters.
not placed in the side yard of corner lots.
Mhm.
Okay,
Sounds fine.
all right. 172, detached accessory dwelling unit, so reserve that because we don't think we have any allowance for detached accessory dwelling in any unit. In
This-
other words,
this
building
is-
that house.
Now we're talking about Linda's.
Yep.
Oh, a dwelling
grandma
unit.
shed in the
Right.
backyard.
Okay.
Or the VRBO. I got a big enough lot, I'm gonna build a two-bedroom apartment building.
Okay, we could leave that reserved.
Yeah.
Talk about it later.
Talk about it later if we need to.
Okay,
Actually, that helps us get over that subject.
yeah. It doesn't, if we pass by and someone wants to do it, we don't have anything on board to restrict it. Other than maybe we can relate it to the other areas we've discussed. Self-storage units, it's kind of a
We got a lot of those.
It's a commercial thing. But if our intent
But
is to
where
skip
can they
over
be?
commercial stuff for now, where could they be? At the corner of our city at the end of Woodsdale. Just before you leave, where the animal thing used to be. Could be a self-storage unit.
Well, we got
Development.
gobs of them right adjacent to the district office here.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
true.
Gobs of them.
Yeah. And they're not built according to this because, no, someplace I read, you can't have their doors facing the street. Is that in here? The frontage.
Now, the frontage of the property shall not
Oh,
contain
C.
any visible exterior roll-up doors. Now, we'd have to grandfather
Yeah,
all of the,
they'd be non-conforming.
yeah, and all of.
So if he has to replace them, he can't replace them with the doors facing the street.
Oh, and I think if you look at C, Deaton's and Martin, maybe,
They're outside the city
out-
limits.
yeah, I know, but I was gonna say, if they became inside the city limits, they would not be conforming, I don't think, to that, number C.
Yeah, the ones on state line aren't,
That says,
and then you can see. the
boats,
doors
trailers,
from the
equipments,
street.
vehicles shall be screened and shielded from view.
Right, so they need to put up a fence, wall.
Mhm.
So it's commercial in aspect, but I think it needs to be here part of our statute sooner than later.
I'm still struggling with that. The frontage of the property shall not contain any visible exterior roll-up doors.
So frontage is the face that faces the street.
When you're standing on the street facing the storage units,
Yeah.
you can't see any doors anywhere on the property.
I think we've got some violations of that already.
Well, the two, well, the
One's
three
long.
of these different storage areas we have right now don't conform to that.
Right.
And I'm not sure that you'd even be able to build them to where you can't see any doors from the street.
There's it's outside our city limits, but on the way to Cassville, up on the left-hand side of the road, there's a nice storage unit system, and all of their doors face away from the road. So, it can be built that way, but in Holiday Island, it's gonna be difficult. You have to put the long side of the building facing the road, so that your doors can be on the other side, rather than like that.
Yeah, but if you're only talking about the very first row of storage units that's adjacent to the frontage, I could see that. But if you're talking about from any place you can't see the doors, I don't know how you could build a storage unit in Holiday Island and have, multiple units and not be able to see the doors from someplace.
It also under D, are you seeing that, where it says if you're in one of those areas, or if you're in anything but one of these areas, you have to provide an 8-foot tall masonry wall or other opaque decorative fence on
Our
the sides
storage
and rear of the property.
Mm-hmm.
Our storage units are only in the commercial areas. Do we even care if we can see the doors from the street?
Yeah.
As long as they're well maintained and
Well, it's in,
the worst example of this is the clubhouse, the golf cart garages that,
Yeah.
even though they're 90 degrees to
Country
Club Drive, when you drive past them, you can see down each one of the alleys, and, there's at least a half a dozen or more of the doors that don't work. They're standing open
Right.
because the doors don't work.
Yep.
And they just talked about that in their budget meeting last week, to come up with some money to replace the doors on those.
they approved it, they told them to go ahead and fix them.
Yeah.
Good.
So, but if it's a private, let's say that Joe sells his business to somebody that doesn't care about maintaining it, and all of a sudden half the doors are standing open, I guess that's a problem.
Well, you could put something in here that they have to be
properly maintained.
maintained, or in the door has to be in the down position,
Or-
except when being
Access.
accessed.
Or at least say that the doors have to be properly maintained. If the doors are going to face the street, they have to be properly maintained.
That seems fine.
And the last section, E, in that is, it says that these units located adjacent to the residential areas. Talks about buffer space.
Which one was that
In
one?
E, it's the very last paragraph in
Okay.
that section.
Oh,
The frontage shall not contain facility or storage rooms. Screened from the right of way.
that's a nice feature.
Does, in that too, at the top of the page, it says the frontage of the property shall not contain any visible exterior roll-up doors. Isn't frontage mean what faces the
On
street
the street.
and not the sides?
Yes.
Some of the faces that face the street can't have roll-ups. But if running down the aisle, you can see the doors as you drive by, that's not what they're prohibiting, it's just the frontage part.
It's like what Joe's got along here.
Right.
Yeah. I think that's one way of interpreting it. That would be the practical way of interpreting it, I guess.
The right-of-way frontage of the property shall consist of one or more mixture of the following structure types. So I'm trying to look for where we insert something about the condition of the doors being closed. Following prohibited uses, that's not good. Located and outside, that's not good. All lighting, I'll just add a 4. We've got minimum 8 foot tall, the frontage, and 3 is the lighting, we'll put a 4 in there.
What is the, in that 2, at the top of page 46, where it said the frontage of the property shall not contain any visible exterior roll-up doors. And then, oh, right of way, ROW. That's what ROW is down
Yeah.
further.
Right of way, yeah.
Okay. Great, okay.
So I've added a new 4 for a condition. Doors remain in good repair and closed unless being accessed.
Great.
So as you drive by the properties, you're not gonna see busted doors hanging crooked and open.
Yeah, I don't think we're gonna have doors facing the street unquestionably, so just make
Or
sure they're
visible
in.
from the street.
Visible from the street, so
Right.
just make sure they're in good repair.
Okay. And then in E, I just had the blue on the planning official, just to make sure I put the right title in there for whatever we call him, whether he's a code enforcement officer or what it might be. Okay, outdoor storage in 174.
Wait, I know
Okay.
we're beating this to death, but, paragraph 2 says that the right-of-way frontage of the property shall consist of one or a mixture of the following structures. So it must have
Some sort of cover.
either the facility office, the manager's residence, retail or other mixed-use type buildings, storage buildings, or any parking.
And C must be completely screened.
That seems like a
And
pretty
an
high
entrance.
standard.
It is, they want them to look nice,
Yeah,
and they has to have a gate.
I don't think we're gonna get those things.
Well, then they won't be building storage units.
Well, what do we do about the existing ones though?
Well, those are non-conforming.
Okay, they can be,
They're there, they're non-conforming
but
to this
if the
standard.
new ones go up,
Mhm.
we'll get that. Okay, that's fine. I get it.
So like when you go into Berryville, you look up on the left, right past the golf, across the street from the golf course, they've got a storage unit there, they got a really nice gate. It's an attractive looking development.
Mhm.
Okay.
And I just added condition 4, doors remain in good repair and closed unless being accessed.
Mhm.
Okay. So 174 outdoor storage, it's a big, long section. Most of it's about commercial,
So,
because it starts off with section A and it's all commercial. We could reserve that for later,
Yeah, I think we need to.
okay? So we won't even spend the time going through it today. I'll mark that reserved.
I was wondering, and I talked to Lynn about, maybe you've already discussed on timeshares. Are there regulations on those, what can be done, or occupancy? Or anything like, and there's 2 of them that are wholly owned, so they're really not timeshare, but right now they're rental. There were people that lived in them before. I mean, the Timber Rock Landing, I think limits occupancy to 8. Does the city need to have provisions dealing with that?
Yes, but I don't think we've gotten to that yet, have we?
is there anything about that kind of a development in here?
No,
I
there's
didn't think
nothing
so.
about timeshares in this document.
So it's kind of
But it
unique.
has to do with the zoning of what to use it for. A timeshare is a commercial unit, so we've been skipping over the commercial stuff. Hotels, motels, timeshares all fit in the same category of kind of control. There probably should be, Wes, but we are not addressing it, haven't been.
I
'Cause
bet,
that's a commercial enterprise,
I bet we could find some regs for Hot Springs Village.
probably. In Cherokee Village and I think Commonwealth Village, I ran across some of
Yeah,
that
I
stuff.
think there's timeshares in
Marshy Bend,
no, the other one.
Fairfield Bay.
Fairfield Bay. Well, Cherokee Village is a city too, so.
Yes.
So it's Fairfield Bay.
So, yeah, let's look let's just find what we can find out there and then figure out how it fits.
But we need to zone it commercial.
Yeah, definitely,
We don't have any, I don't have any covenants for them yet,
yeah.
if they even exist.
Now, if it would be commercial, what about the ones then that, there are 2 that are wholly owned, they're not
Well,
shared. And the people used to live in them, I think they've either died or moved, but they
Yeah.
were permanent residents.
I wonder
Well,
if
we-
those
what
could
we
be
can do-
carved out.
we would permit residential in commercial under certain conditions. So we have to define what those conditions are.
But,
Because I've read that in some places.
but actually, those timeshares are in different units. They're
It
split,
is broken, I think there's
it's
5
broken up
units.
into several different units.
Yep.
It's not 28 units, but it's several different units.
Right.
Like each little housing area is
Each
a,
triplex
there's
is
a
a separate
triplex
unit.
or a fourplex, and
Yeah.
each one is a separate unit.
Well, it could be- I had a phone call about accounting services, like to Oak Point, or one of those up there said they were having such a problem, like so many years ago, they went to, well, short-term rentals or something like that.
Really?
Which I guess that's rental, that's not necessarily.
Or maybe they were allowing in their
That's-
POA
that's
people
their
to do
POA,
short-term rentals.
Covenants that
They could make
allow-
an Airbnb out of a
allow,
place.
Short-term rental.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll have to have a section in here for timeshares
Okay.
when we get to commercial.
Okay, so 180 is signs, and it's a huge section that I haven't gone through. I marked it reserved. We can tackle that another day, I think. 210 is off-street parking. That's marked reserved, because it's aimed at commercial stuff. 211, driveways and access, multifamily and non-residential uses. The concerns I have in this section is they're using the words in the statutes defining our master street plan of arterial streets and collector streets. And we didn't name that in our street plan. We named ours, we didn't even name them by any kind of a label. We just mapped out what our snow removal route is and some width issues.
Well, wouldn't a snow removal route be an arterial, sort of, so to speak?
I'm pretty sure it's the main artery.
Kind of the same thing?
Mhm.
Uh-huh. I'm not sure what a collector street is though here.
Well, from my study of looking at the street mapping issue, it's streets that feed your arteries.
Okay, so it could be everything else.
I think so.
Okay.
But then is there one more in this group? No, there wasn't.
So do you think you could map what you called them to
Yeah.
these words?
I'll try to find a different definition for this text to match our street plan, or we modify our street plan. We can modify the street plan at any time, so it's not set in stone. I'll try to reword this. If it doesn't work, then we'll have to work on the street plan. Otherwise, I didn't see reason to change anything else in this section. Because we're talking about future development, we're talking about what we want.
Did they have any standards in here regarding construction
No,
or
about how the road
materials
base is
or?
made, no, I didn't find anything like that. That's supposed to be in your, I see those descriptions in the subdivision regulations you create. So if someone wants to build a subdivision, you're gonna have to build a road of a certain width and has certain kind of road structure and curbing or not, and
So otherwise, at this point with the existing stuff, we don't really care,
yeah, or we don't need it, I don't think.
don't need it.
Now, is this section here, 211? Well, that's multifamily and non-residential.
Right. So we're talking about the multifamily housing groups, like the townhouses or commercials,
Mhm.
how they're gonna access the street and,
Yeah, I don't see anything.
Would this be sort of in the neighborhood of what we were talking about, paving your whole front yard?
no,
No,
because that's
residential.
residential. This section is about
Non-residential.
It's about non-resident and
Okay.
multifamily.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay, I put off 212 as well. That was a pretty long section. In 213, the corner visibility, I said we need a graphic showing how the sight line or sight triangle is determined. Here's a great example of how sight line is determined. And they're showing a picture of a corner, and they're showing how to measure the 25 feet from both directions, and how to draw a line. And then in their ordinance, and this comes from Walnut Ridge, they say from 2 feet to 10 feet, you have to have clear view. This restriction is, now listen, somewhere I read it was 8 feet, somewhere. I like the 10-foot idea, so that your delivery trucks have a little bit more view. So you have to create a site area of a certain triangle shape and a certain clearance from a low point to a high point. It has to be open.
Yeah, here it's 2 feet to 8 feet
In 213?
in 213.
The second line, at the end of the second line.
Oh, there it is. It's text and not numbered. Okay. I like to put the combination in. 2 feet, it's easier to pick out, and 8 feet. Should we change that to 10?
Sure.
You like the idea of 10 for clearance? Because this says, this is 8 feet above the 2 foot, so it's 10 feet above the curb.
Yeah.
And is curb okay even though we don't have curbs? You know, road edge, do we need to spell it out, or is curb fine? The curb is flat or non-existent?
Could you just say above grade?
How about road grade? Above road grade?
Road grade?
Yeah,
There we
that's
go.
what I would
Road.
do.
There
Road
we
grade
go.
sounds good.
There we go, road grade. And this 25 feet is typical. I see that in a lot of, I've seen it in a lot of different ordinances. So there may be lots in Holiday Island that aren't manicured to the corner, and you don't have a 25-foot sight line.
Okay. A lot of them.
A lot of
And
them.
in fact, Kenny has incurred the wrath of property owners when he's gone out and cut down trees and stuff that block the intersection, the view,
The sight line.
that he had no right to be on their property cutting down their trees. This will give, you know, the city at least the right to
Yeah.
do that.
Okay.
Because there's a lot of blind corners in Holiday Island where you're halfway out in the intersection before you can see if anybody's coming or not.
And there was an exception I saw in one where it was not a right angle corner, but they had an angled corner. So now your 25 feet needs to be measured differently. So there was something about the angle of the intersection. Now we're going to make the triangle 35 feet or 40 feet just to make it safe. But if we start with 25 feet, that'll be better than what we got. Okay.
Can you email me just this, this 14-212 that you took out as reserve for now?
I can. The original document's out there, but I can send that to you.
Yeah, because I may want to pick and choose some things out of that that are that we would want in the first go around.
Okay.
Because that's one of the things that, it's one of the sore spots in Holiday Island is, you know, people putting up, you know, visqueen greenhouses in their front yard and stuff.
Well, maybe we have it already here, Dan. Scroll down to, I believe this issue of screening or fencing is a separate section. Where did I see it?
Well, it may be covered, but
Fences, 215.
215, that's where we would, okay. But what you need or what you're looking for may be already here is what I'm suggesting. But I can send you to 212, that's no problem.
the offender in this particular case, I think, calls it his garden, and having a garden in your front yard is not against the covenants. But it's definitely having a negative effect on property value in the area.
Okay.
Oh, in other words, a yard covered with too much screening?
No,
In the
with garden
wintertime,
materials.
It's in the wintertime, it's a
It's a plastic.
Oh,
I mean, he's got
Wow.
PVC pipe and.
You've not seen
and
it?
up-
I haven't
up
seen
and
that
So it's a
house.
structure.
He wraps it in plastic in the wintertime to make a little greenhouse
It's a structure.
I
It
haven't
obstructs-
seen that.
Wish it was a little greenhouse.
That's an
Yeah, a little greenhouse. is
accessory building, isn't it?
It's a structure for sure.
It's, it defies description or definition. It's a garden. It's a garden that he's got, you know, chicken wire for his plants to grow up, and in the wintertime, he wraps the whole thing in visqueen so he can grow tomatoes in the wintertime
Wow.
or something. And if it was in his backyard, nobody would care, but in his front yard, right up against the road,
You may not find what you need in 212, because I think it talks about it's a commercial related, is why I marked it. It's,
Oh, okay.
it's, you know, how a business
Okay.
screens and fences and buffers.
okay.
Pretty sure that was commercial stuff, but I'll send it to you. All right, so site triangle, 214, compatibility standards. This section is associated with higher density residential uses and non-residential development. They're intended to mitigate the effects of the uses with operating and structural characteristics that are vastly different than those associated with single family. So all this has to do in the 214 about multifamily typically and commercial. It's good text. I just don't know if we need to have it all in here for now.
Do we have any situations like this now?
Not currently, but it's, you know, what does someone want to do with parcel A?
And for, yeah, in the future.
What does someone want to do with that parcel? You
Yep.
want to develop it.
Yep. I mean, you might be talking those parcels down on the island, aren't you?
Mhm.
Yep. I agree.
So with that except, I'm just highlighting the fact that it has to do with not just residential, but it's the multifamily stuff and some commercial stuff. You know, where they're gonna put their dumpsters for their neighborhood trash and
Well, I don't see
What
a
are we gonna do
problem with leaving it in.
okay. I think it's a,
I
like
don't
we said,
either.
it's a great stake to put in the ground and
Mhm.
start from.
Right.
Okay, 215 fences, I didn't find any issues in there.
Again, is this more, commercial fences, or? is
This,
all
I think, is
fences?
residential stuff. So this might be what you're looking for as far as fences, Dan, but not about garden spaces. I have a neighbor that violates E, electrified fence. I have a couple neighbors, there's one off of Deer Run and, no, Beaver, it's Deer Run and Sailboat. He's got electric fence next to the road, protecting his bushes. Next to that gigantic steel building in his backyard.
I like this one. Missing boards, pickets, and posts shall be replaced in a timely manner with the same type and quality, because I do see some fences that have missing boards.
They're dilapidated.
Dilapidated, yeah.
But I am having with that particular one, there's a statute that says we can't legislate appearance. Because I don't see how missing pickets, boards, and posts are safety and welfare.
But they do affect property value. And,
Okay.
And that is one
True.
thing that we can take
We
into
can legislate that.
consideration when
Well,
we
we-
make laws.
Okay,
Good.
good,
So
all right.
I think that comes under the general umbrella of general well-being of the
Okay.
residents.
Well, anything that's dilapidated is going to affect property values.
Mhm. Do we have any sidewalks anywhere in Holiday Island right now?
We might in the future, but not now.
Is there a sidewalk here along these, right across the street, connecting these units?
There might be.
Yeah, I think there is.
Okay,
Yeah.
Right there.
Right, goes right up the street a little way.
because that's multifamily and commercial, then there's some things here for sidewalks. So if you're gonna build one, it has to be ADA compatible.
That
think
makes
it's good that
sense.
we have it.
That makes sense.
Okay. Street frontage for R1s and 2s.
So we're saying,
Whoops.
according to this, we're saying that you can have a fence in your front yard, but it can't be more than 36 inches tall.
That's correct. Mhm.
And that is different than the covenants.
Probably.
Yeah, I
don't
think
the covenants allow any fencing in
past the front of the house.
Past the front of the
But
And I
I think
guess
it-
the
but I
one
think-
on Holiday Island Drive must have went before the planning commission, because they've got a 36-foot
Well, there's
fence,
one
I
on
think,
Oak Point Drive too, just
Okay.
down the street from
In the front
Preacher.
yard?
in the front yard. Sawyer's,
Oh, yeah, they're little,
the little doggy fence,
yeah.
but it's nice looking.
It might not be more than 36 inches.
That's what I said. I think it's under 36 inches.
But that one on Oak Point Drive that's just down the street from Pastor Bob, it's this
Oh,
tall.
yeah, it is there.
Mhm.
Do have one down
Then it
there.
goes right up to the street.
That's right.
There's not even a 5-foot setback.
Well, it's less than 36, isn't it? Or
No,
is
it's
it
this
4
tall.
feet? It's, really?
It's 5 foot at least.
Is it wrought iron?
Mhm.
Okay,
Well, I know it's wrought iron, it's steel.
Yes.
It's painted metal.
okay.
It's not stone or whatever. But, you know, we know that a fence that's only 3 feet high isn't really a fence. It's just a border marker.
Mhm.
Okay.
Mhm.
216 side, okay.
All right. Is this,
This is problematic for us in Holiday Island because of our topography. You can't always set houses 35 feet back.
This is so true.
well, each unit has different setback requirements.
They're pretty much all the same. I think they're all 25 feet or something like that.
Yeah,
But there's houses in this town that are not 25 feet from the road.
yeah, they've granted exceptions over the years of variances.
So I didn't know what to do with this one for sure.
Yeah, because there are lots in Holiday Island that, you know, if you're 35 feet back from the road, you're already
On the
about
cliff.
50 feet down.
Exactly. You're 3 stories down to get to the main floor
Yeah.
to make the house usable.
So what are we gonna do with this?
I don't know.
Well, can they get a permit? I mean, can they get a variance? If they have that situation?
We'd have to, yeah. And I'm thinking this works great if we're talking about near flat areas to be developed in the future.
Mhm.
Of which
But
we
we
have
have some
few.
lots that are platted that 35 feet just isn't gonna work.
And we could have a note on here that planning commission can issue variances where topography won't allow the full setback.
That's a good thing to put in there so people know they're not automatically ruled out.
Okay, I got this far. Planning
Otherwise-
commission can allow variances where topography,
Does not allow for the full setback. Otherwise, we'd be declaring 1,000 lots in Holiday
Right.
Island as being not buildable.
right?
I think there's several on my street down as you go toward Jerry's house that they may have 10 feet
Mhm.
from the street.
Okay.
They're
I
very
got it
close
down.
to the street.
Good.
Flood damage protection.
And I didn't look at any of this because it's probably mirroring statutory
Yeah.
stuff that there's. And I don't know, the lower parts of Holiday Island, the island, are they subject to flooding? I know the line that the Corps has is supposed to be the high water mark. But the whole lake has to flood above that in order to flood any properties down there. Do we have any flooding issues? Well, we have some low-lying areas.
It would seem like, it would seem like there are, lots along Haddock Creek that would be in that floodplain when you consider the fact that,
Yeah.
that, a storm washed out the bridge
Yeah.
on State Line Drive a few years ago. So that was.
And there are houses that are that
Yeah.
low, pretty
Yeah,
much,
that's- yeah,
pretty
that's
close.
not, that's the low point between there and the lake,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, I don't think we could rule it out.
However, I am not actually aware of any, lots in any designated floodplain area. You know, how they have, that's something we probably need to consider.
But this just basically says that if you're gonna develop or redevelop an area, you need to make plans for that.
Yeah,
It doesn't say what happens with existing stuff.
yeah, that's true.
So I made the statement in 232 that may not be true, that FEMA has identified special flood hazard areas of Holiday Island in the current scientific and engineering report entitled Flood Insurance Study for Carroll County, Arkansas.
Did you
I don't know if that
find
exists.
such a study?
No, I changed all the names away from Town.
I would leave out that,
Yeah,
I would leave that paragraph out, I think.
Well,
well,
what do I do with it though?
yeah.
Do I reserve it? So we
Let's see.
don't have it in our text?
Who would you even contact in the county that would even?
You contact FEMA.
Yeah, well, the county has an emergency.
I think that
management-
position is open
I don't want it.
right now.
Yeah, I don't know. You probably want to at least, put that whole paragraph in.
The whole section 232, reserve it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
because,
Just leave it out for now till
Because we don't know
investigate
anything.
Yeah,
it? Okay. There is no facts to find yet. We don't know what they are.
I know that the Corps, has control over the whole Haddock Creek thing, at least up to Valley Drive, if not all the way up to where it crosses over from
State line?
going up into Indian Hills, where it crosses from Wild Turkey up into Indian Hills. Because if Kenny wants to clear the culverts for the low water bridges and haul any of that rock out of there, he has to get permission from the Corps.
Okay.
So,
Do any of the other cities in Carroll County have code like this?
I didn't investigate it. I don't remember running across it.
Are these are
This is in
Muni
planning.
code?
Yeah, this is
Standard
municipal
Muni code
This
stuff.
is code from,
They
it's-
might. I would say, you might be able to find what's pertinent to Carroll County if you looked for Green Forest or Berryville and Eureka to see their Muni code.
I'd just reserve it for now.
I would.
It's not a phase one priority.
the whole section on flood prevention,
Probably.
all of it,
Probably.
let's take it all out? Okay,
Sounds good.
Just reserve it for now.
okay. I'll just reserve the entire section. We take it out of our text. So what I'm looking for is what can I put on a recommendation that we adopt?
Yeah. There, I think there's something in the building code, I'd have to go back and reread it again.
About floodplain?
It's not about floodplain, but about, drainage
Oh,
and, which, that you can't disturb the natural flow of water, which kind of ties into this.
okay, so we're jumping down to the top of page 55, dot 240.
Is this a good break point?
Probably, because it's 5 minutes to noon,
So when do we have to finish this?
when we get it done.
Okay. No time
We
limit?
wanted to have it done
at
When
least,
we have the building inspector hired,
yeah,
Okay,
the code enforcement officer.
so we could have another meeting
First
or
of
two
January,
to get through it, okay,
at least for the residential piece.
yeah.
So we're gonna stop at, the bottom of page 54, which is, I think, is the end of the flood stuff, and start with 240 next time. At the top of page 55.
Start with 240, okay. Okay.
And I know
all right,
that finishes this agenda item, Mr. Chairman, but we did talk about what we offer for outside visitors and digital coverage. I think it'd be appropriate we have a discussion about that for planning commission.
okay,
I'm in favor of offering Zoom for broadcast only purposes and put a disclaimer out or whatever that it's not our intention to monitor for feedback.
are you making that motion?
No, I'm just making that as a conversation.
Okay, I agree.
Well, why don't you make it a motion?
Yeah, make it a motion so we can vote on it for at least the planning commission.
Well, we can't act on it because it's not on our agenda.
Oh, okay. So we
But
have
I
to have
could,
another.
I could prepare a resolution for the next agenda.
Sounds good.
We're all in favor.
Okay. I'll draft a resolution to be adopted at our next meeting then.
Which leads us to scheduling.
Yes.
And there are no public, so there is no public comments.
No public comments, no Zoom participants.
And our next meeting would, we typically meet on the,
Second Tuesday at 3, I think, is that not?
Second Tuesday of the month.
second Tuesday, that would be December 7th, Pearl Harbor Day.
7th. I've got something going that day.
No, the second Tuesday would be the 14th.
Oh, better. Yeah, that's the first Tuesday is the 7th.
Right,
14th is good.
So we won't have another special meeting until then. We'll just have a regular meeting.
I think so.
Okay,
And,
9 a.m.
Mm,
No, excuse me,
I
3.
think they're supposed to be at
They're
3.
supposed to be at 3.
3, so,
So I've got a lot of things I can do that I can.
do we wanna change that time to 1 o'clock and give us the afternoon to, I mean, I don't think that makes it a special meeting, it just makes it changing the time to give us, instead of working from like 3 to 6.
Instead of going to 6.
Yeah, work from 1 to 4 or something like that. Because we still got quite a bit to go through.
Yeah, well, we're getting, of 66 pages, we're on page 54, and the last 10 pages is a bunch of crap that I didn't go through because it doesn't have the right definitions on it. So there isn't a lot of text left,
But we could,
but we can schedule 1 o'clock.
if we allow
It's okay
plenty
with
of
me.
time, then we could get it
Yeah.
all the way to, hopefully get it all the way to the
Go
point
at least
of
to the
having an
end.
ordinance drafted to approve at the December city council meeting.
This is gonna take Lynn 3 weeks to get this put together, I'm
Yeah.
sure.
And we need to go through, I guess, we've been through it, so.
It's not absolutely critical that we start, you know, the zoning enforcement on December 1st. It is necessary that we have the planning commission, or the, well, it does kind of tie together a little bit, but it's dead critical that we have the building inspector ready to go on January 1st.
Yeah, isn't this really only pertinent for people needing variances for new
Well,
construction or something?
We passed an ordinance that, it was kind of an emergency ordinance that said that, something to the effect that until we get more until we get a real zoning ordinance, we're going to adopt the zoning restrictions.
Whatever's in the covenants.
Unit covenants.
Mhm.
And we passed that because I knew that we had to have zoning ordinances in order to have a building code.
Okay,
So
so we're okay to go
We
for a
can-
while.
we can limp along.
You could limp along till the end of January,
but
maybe,
just
easily.
Just using the covenants as a guide, if anybody wants a building permit in January or something like that, until we're more ready.
It wouldn't be too vastly different than what we're putting in here.
No, I think we've done a good job trying to support the covenant,
Yeah,
have the same viewpoints.
Yeah. Okay, so that from 1 to 4.
okay, and that's,
November
you don't think
14th.
that's a problem to change the time? I don't know what the
For a regular
rules say
meeting,
about that.
we're still having it on the same day, just different time of day.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, I
When
know
we
what you're
put out
talking
the
about.
meeting notice, we can just say note the time change.
Okay.
And we're still, I guess the exception I would take, Linda, to the complaints is we're not rushing, but we're working very hard to get this massive amount of text covered and implemented.
Yeah.
It'll be more regular when we have it all done.
Absolutely.
Okay, motion to adjourn,
I'll move, we adjourn.
second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned.
Stop.
Good. Oh, yeah, here we go.